Hello, hello, and welcome back to yet another. Was this episode 17?
18.
18. Episode 18 of Dark Shad-Bros. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. I'm sure people are going to check over here. We've got some people watching already, and I know it usually heats up as the time goes by. But thank you guys, each and every one of you, for your continued support. This is, since we started, the most episodes we've done in succession like this, which I really kind of like. I like that we get to see each other every couple of days and talk about one of our favorite subjects in the whole wide world. So thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, folks, if you are watching on Facebook and especially on YouTube, hit like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us out immensely with building up our viewership. So please hit like and subscribe, comment, ask questions. We've had a bunch of wonderful comments and questions. We always have a lot of fun answering those. Every once in a while, we get someone who might be a little bit overzealous. Please do not ask us to get in touch with the Dan Curtis estate. We have no ties to the Dan Curtis estate. We don't know his kids. We're friends with a couple of actors from the original show, but you need to find that stuff out on your own in terms of, hey, if you can track them down and you have a good idea, I'm sure that the Curtis estate would love to hear it. But we have not one of us in this group has ties to the Dan Curtis estate. So just so you know. And for those of you who don't know me, and there's no reason in the world why you should, my name is Peter Mack. I work primarily in musical theater and cabaret, done a bunch of off-Broadway shows and tours, and work as a cabaret artist and a tribute artist, primarily as performing as the late, great Judy Garland. I'm going into my 23rd year performing as Judy. Just had a wonderful big gig in Florida about 2 weeks ago. So I'm available for hire if you want Judy or anyone, including myself. It's all live, no lip sync. So give me a buzz if you're looking for Judy or someone of that ilk. I'm actually about to embark on a new cabaret show, which will be part of our usual Judy Garland Golden Girls shows. It's called Wicked and Wonderful Music of Oz Off to Sing the Wizard. It's the 125th anniversary of the classic children's novel, The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. It's the 50th anniversary of The Wiz. Everyone is in eager anticipation of the sequel to the first Wicked movie, Wicked for Good. So the evening is going to be contrived of songs from the MGM film, from The Wiz, from Wicked, and including pop tunes that were written in honor of The Wizard of Oz. So if you're in the Salem, Massachusetts area, I hope you will check that out. Now I'm going to turn it over to my other guest host, Michael Panzerato.
I thought you were going to say Alfie. Hello, my name is Michael Panzerato. I am thrilled to be here, first of all. I'm thrilled that you all are tuning in. Please hit like and subscribe. It costs you nothing. And as my uncle would say, what's the matter with you? Just hit the damn button. Anyway, I am also an actor. I do. I love that term, tribute artist. I feel like I do that with Jonathan Harris, who is my guy, Dr. Zachary Smith from Lost in Space. I go to conventions. I have some coming up in Carlisle, PA, and some of the things will come out and see me this year. Love Dark Shadows since I was a kid, second, third grade. Since then, it's been a love affair that hasn't ended. So it's been a great joy to talk with these guys. And now I'm going to defer to DJ Schaefer, who is the brains behind all of this, holding the enterprise together like Scotty, our man.
Hello, hello, hello. And we had a conversation about Wicked right before we started. And Michelle Yeoh, isn't she starring in that new Star Trek movie coming out?
She is. Chapter 34, Section 34.
So cool. So I'm John Schaefer. I'm Peter Mack's husband. I also am a tribute artist, primarily as B. Arthur, on occasion Ethel Merman, and a host of others. And I'm excited about this. I don't want to belabor my introduction because we have a huge episode ahead of us to cover all of the episodes here with the show. We watched it again and finished this morning. And boy, oh boy, that's all I'll say until we get to that point. Back to my husband.
Well, before we even go any further with that, it is a very special day in the Dark Shadows community because we refer to her, many of us refer to her as the Elizabeth Collins Stoddard of the organization. It is Catherine Lee Scott's birthday today. So happy birthday, Catherine. We love you. We thank you for all you do in terms of keeping the Dark Shadows legacy alive. Hey, woo! As things go spilling over. Um, so thank you, Catherine, for all you do in terms of the Dark Shadows legacy. I think that her book, that first book, My Scrapbook Memories of Dark Shadows, definitely had a lot to do with keeping the flame lit. I know that I found it just after I started watching the series, like maybe the first 4 or 5 volumes at my local B. Dalton, and I told her I have another chat show that I do called Mac and Chat, and she's one of my guests on there, so check that episode out. But I told her, I carried it around with me for 2 years in my backpack. It was dog-eared, just worn out beyond belief, and with between that book, everything she's produced through Pomegranate Press, The Dark Shadows Companion, the 2 Dark Shadows Almanacs, Collinwood Revisited, Dark Shadows Resurrected, which is about the new show. The list goes on and on. So we owe a lot to Catherine. And Catherine, we hope you're having a beautiful day with your fiance, Patrick. Patrick and Catherine are tying the knot. Is it May? I think it's in May
So
or
cool.
June. Either May or June, they are tying the knot. So we wish them
And
the
we'll be seeing her in
best.
July. She's doing an event.
And don't forget, guys, she is hosting an event at Lyndhurst, July 19th and 20th. We are so excited to be going to that. Keep getting this wrong. It's either a Friday and Saturday or a Saturday Sunday.
It's a Saturday, Sunday.
There we go. It's a Saturday Sunday. So check that out if you want a Dark Shadows fix. There's going to be surprise guests, tours of the mansion. I believe maybe they might even be opening up the Tower Room, the almost never able to get into from Night of Dark Shadows Tower Room.
I don't know if that's public knowledge or not, but now that's an exclusive here on the show. The Tower Room will be open.
I said maybe.
It's open. It's open.
You heard it here first.
Nick Caputo, you inspired me to watch 91 DS after a long time, and I'm quite enjoying the show. I'm glad, and I'm glad that we rewatched it too. I have loved the second half of this series.
We watched. Let's see. Well, here's the deal, guys, and I had to go onto a board and explain this. I made the mistake of telling you all that you could watch it all on YouTube. Michael realized that wasn't so. I didn't know that wasn't so. The pivotal seance episode that gets Vicky back into the past is not there. So you cannot watch episode 6 on YouTube.
It is online.
It's on Daily Motion.
Yep.
You can view it there. So we had to go in and watch that there. Then we went back, but then episodes 7 and 8 are reversed. So you have to watch episode 8, which is really episode 7, and episode 7 is really episode 8. After that,
Then
everything balances itself out. So if you want to watch the show, you can. Also,
and we'll post a link to that episode 6 in our comments.
Brent, oh God, Brent, your last name just went Gannon in the Dark Shadows Revival Facebook page. There is a wonderful behind the scenes tape that MPI Home Video put out in the early 90s called Dark Shadows Resurrected. It just is about that show, behind the scenes, wonderful interviews with the cast, outtakes, bloopers, rehearsal, videotapes of rehearsal. So I have the tape. I found the tape recently in a box. It needs to be transferred and uploaded, and then hopefully we can upload it so people can watch it, because I know a lot of this stuff people have been doing. I don't want to get into trouble, but people have been asking, can someone please upload it? So if we can get it into our transfer, then hopefully we can upload it and people can watch it before maybe they pull it down, because I know people do want to watch it. So we should just dive in. Oh my God, there's so much to cover in those 6.5 episodes. There is just so much to cover. With what they accomplished, they really accomplished a lot more than I think anybody gives them credit for. It's just sad. I said this to John after we were done watching. If only they could have had another 6 or 8 episodes, how much more story they could have told. And that wasn't Dan Curtis's fault. That really was the studio's fault. He loved being in the past, and I think was very, very hurt that they had to remember. They wanted it truncated. I mean, at one point it was supposed to be a 5-episode order.
Crazy.
And he said, no way, I can't do it. And I think they even asked because they were afraid of going into the past. Somehow they thought the audience wasn't going to buy it going into the past. Can you do it in 1 episode? or can you just have a very quick or a series of flashbacks to show how he became a vampire and then we move on from there? I had heard that, and I think that might be in Dark Shadows Resurrected, that they wanted that, and it was no. This was a good thing for our show originally, and we're going to do it again. So very happy that he fought for that.
Absolutely. I can't even imagine a series of flashbacks. That would have been so disappointing. The time travel thing is part of Dark Shadows. Hello.
Yeah. Yep.
And we'll get to this, but
Mm-mm.
when we get to the costume flashback pieces of the episodes, that's really where the show picks up. Um, it moves quickly, the first 5 episodes, but episode 6 on, when you go into the past, amazing.
Well, we lost a lot of the great story from 1967. I think that's one of my favorite arcs is Barnabas grappling, with his human side versus his vampiric side. Julia trying to cure him, the love triangle with Vicky. They had to they wheedled that down because they had no choice.
Right.
And Burke isn't there at all. We've talked about that. So I just think there's so much good story from 1967 that we didn't get. I miss Julia being in the mausoleum and all of a sudden the blood starts oozing out of Sarah's placard. Things like that I think would have really played very, very well. But all of that had to be so truncated. So once you get into episode 6, and now we've got a problem here, right? Because have we ended with him? We've ended with him rejuvenating with Carolyn's blood. And now Carolyn is on the payroll, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So things really get interesting. Your thoughts on that, Michael?
Uh, this is one of my favorite episodes for the costume ball, which was one of my favorite in the original, when they had the private Collins family party and they're all dressed up. And you miss that in this because there's no Burke. You miss that great scene where he rips the picture of Jeremiah out and all of that. But you get that kind of intensity with Carolyn and Julia, and he is like a snake in this with Julia. He sends Carolyn to the apothecary, remember, at one point, and but the costume ball is great, and I think that this is one of my favorite. When he's dabbing his face with his handkerchief as they go in, or his forehead, I think that's so great, so cool. And
And
the cane is all polished up.
poor Willie, there he is, and he's, puts the cape on him, and he's like, "Gosh, Barnabas, do I wish you could see yourself in the mirror? You look terrific." And he just kind of like,
If I could reach you, I'd hit you.
yeah,
One of those deals.
you
Uh,
know.
uh, uh.
But again, there he's pleading for Vicky. He's worried, and Barnabas says, I will avoid her." He really doesn't want to hurt her.
You get that absolute sense and the tragedy of when she comes down the stairs or whatever, and he says he's compelled to say good night to her or good evening or whatever, but he quickly makes a quick withdrawal. You get the sense of she's confused and he's upset, and that's driving all that hatred to for Hoffman fuel. That's and Julia's costume is great too. Just
And
the feathers and
she's
all that.
working that fan, the way she's got that
That's right.
fan, like Mata Hari. She's like Mata Hari, just glaring and,
Doing a fan show, a couple of fans. Uh, uh, uh. It is. It's one of my. It is a great. What you said is so true about the time. What they did with the time afforded to them was really a great accomplishment. The amount of story that they did tell in the brevity of time that they had is quite impressive. Each episode.
absolutely.
Willie's costume is also wonderful. The wig that doesn't fit.
And all of
You
the
know,
little, where he cut himself shaving, he's got all the little,
David's pretty cool too. And Sarah is that's very eerie. That
I
Sarah's
love
there on the
that.
stairs
She's
and
watching.
nobody picks up that there's a little girl there that's, in time frame, and I think that's so cool.
And it's because she's smiling, and it's almost like she's being brought back to her own time.
Right, right.
She's getting
When
such a,
you wish she could have had some interaction with Barnabas there too. Or like maybe he'd spotted her or something because they're, maybe a little
well, from the
thing.
original costume party, right? Vicky sees her. I just saw a little girl at the top of the stairs.
Very eerie.
Yeah. But I
Original
mentioned to
Disney.
John, I said, look, I said, again, that's all the archways from Highclere Castle. So the money they spent
Yeah.
building that set was incredible.
There was
That's
a
Highclere Castle is the castle that Downton Abbey is.
Downton Abbey, and I believe, I think Dan liked it. He had used it in a project, and I think that's
Interesting.
why they use that as the model.
Got it.
it has a Dorian Gray feel to it, or a very old. It gives you that wealthy family thing. So absolutely.
We um we have
Hey, Deborah,
a new person watching. Hello, Deborah. She loves Dark Shadows.
you've
We do
got good
too.
taste, Deborah.
We have a question from Nick, actually, before we go any further. He's up to episode 9. It improved greatly as it went on. Many of the changes, revisions worked well. Am I correct that there was one intro voiceover in episode 2 or 3?
It's because they had to, they were separate episodes, but then they melded them into a 2 hour, and that's why there was a voiceover done, but melded together, they got rid of it. So even when we were watching, for some reason, in the separate episode, it's not there. Because the second night they did another 2 hour, but it really is another episode, Nick. That's what they did there. So there is actually a My Name Is, because I said to John, I was like, wait a minute. I know there's a My Name Is Victoria Winters, but it's from the VHS tapes and the DVD releases of the show. But it's not inherent in these uploaded episodes. So yeah, that threw me for a minute when I saw that as well. Um,
We have a couple of listeners who are watching who have some hearing impairment. Just want to let you guys know that this is broadcasting with subtitles. So depending on where you're watching it, you just click on the bottom right on the CC and the subtitles will come up real time.
and then on YouTube later on, you'll be able to watch it with subtitles,
Yeah.
closed captioned as well. What I like about the costume party is, really when he says to Julia, you do realize scores will have to be settled.
I've been saying that all day. Scores will have to be settled.
Scores will have
That's
to
so
be
funny.
settled. That's great. Then we get to that wonderful scene on the terrace with him and Gene Simmons. When he's about to tell
Backward,
Vicky,
turn backward.
go for it.
Oh, timing your flight. Backward, turn backward. Oh, timing your flight. Make me a child again just for tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
I
That's so
love
sad.
that. I love that.
That's so sad. Anybody who has a nostalgic childhood, or has something going on, we all think that. And you think too, when you're looking at him, how emotional he must be, thinking, you look so much like my mother, and I can't have her here or there. What inner kind of turmoil there was.
Yeah. And he's about to really give Vicky the heave ho, not because he wants to, but and she's
Right.
so upset. And then Liz, interrupts all of that, but it is very sweet. He says, tonight has brought back so many memories for me. Then we go in and we're playing parlor games. So rather than the seance that we get in 1967, now they're using a real old fashioned Ouija board.
Big wooden thing with a wooden planchette. We found one of those in my aunt's house.
Oh, wow.
She when she moved in, and I remember thinking, just like Dark Shadows. or when Dark Shadows they had it, I said just like my aunt's is what it was. But yeah, it was really that's a cool kind of moment in the series. Who's driving the planchette? Is it Barnabas, or is it
Right.
I love when he makes Carolyn dive in, throw yourself on the board.
And
I love that
they're
part.
getting so close because, all right, they know CO, and it's like, okay, Roger's like, I have an alibi. I have an alibi.
What's the first initial?
What's the first initial? And you're going, oh, man. I mean,
So
even Julia is getting really upset
and it's Angelique at that point.
because
Hmm.
it's, and I wondered, I wondered if it wasn't Sarah who was manipulating the board.
I don't. Interesting.
I
I
wondered
didn't
if it
think
wasn't
about that.
Sarah manipulating the board, but you're right. It could have just as well have been Angelique.
She doesn't want anything to happen to her brother, even though he is inherently
I
evil.
I keep wrestling with that. What is it that is? I guess Sarah is unable to see his torment. Yet she does know that Angelique is involved because she's warning them that Angelique is coming. But I guess then I have to say to myself, we're in the mind of a child. You know, you're dealing with the mind of a child, so she's not going to be able to measure the black and white reality of what's actually going on. She just sees that her brother bit their horrible aunt right in
Right.
front of her and is responsible for all those other things. But I struggle with that because there was such love. Well, we'll get to it, but in the duel, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's, so I guess so. Yeah, it might have been been Sarah pushing that. She's got that Collins pain in the ass hard head, so maybe.
Right. Um, and then after that, that's when Carolyn pays the visit to the apothecary.
hmm The old guy who's in everything from the 50s and
Charles
60s.
Lane. Charles Lane, who did everything. He's in the waiting room with Ricky Ricardo when Lucy is about to give birth. He's
It's a
in
Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. He's in Billy with Patty Duke, which also features a young Donna McKechnie in one of her first major motion pictures as a dancer.
I didn't know that.
Ah,
Yeah,
he's in a
yeah.
lot of Dennis the Menace episodes, I think, or one of those kids shows. He's in a lot of those. Always a stern old guy.
And that's all in San Pedro, folks. If you go out there, that wharf where Maggie and Vicky have brunch and where they go for the apothecary, because it really looks like the wharf here in Salem, Massachusetts. It's very much like the House of Seven
Sure
Gables.
does.
And so that's in San Pedro. You can go visit there and have brunch where Maggie and get yourself an old apothecary. And they may be old, but they can still kill you.
That's right. That's right. It's funny because so many of those sets, like when Vicky is arrested, that whole courthouse looks just like Annapolis, Annapolis here in Maryland. It looks just like, which was the nation's first capital. But it has that when you watch it, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm in Annapolis.
And
So
and
they
I,
all have
I
that kind of look.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but do you know what the courthouse is? It's the living room of the old house.
Is it real? Oh God, he really did suck the blood out of that one, didn't he? Oh, now
And
I'll be looking
we're
at it.
jumping ahead. We're jumping ahead, but uh, the um, the set designer wanted homemade pews, and Dan said, "Oh no, we just get the pews from Universal." But I want to, and they all said he talked like Mr. Magoo. Dan, they said, that's pretty much how he would respond to things. And so he rented the pews, and then this was a big Universal lost. There was a fire in Universal's set prop area, and so the pews went up, and so he said, "All right, go ahead and make your pews." He had no choice. So those were
Wow.
homemade, but we are in the living room of the old house for the courtroom scenes.
Speaking of the courtroom
Do,
scenes, the jury box, you can see those. That whole thing is shaking. It wasn't
Oh,
oh, is it
particularly
real?
well built.
do you know what it looks like? It looks like Quentin's Stairway into Time.
Oh yeah, it
What she's
does.
sitting in, it looks like the very front of Quentin's Stairway into Time from the original show. I noticed that today when we were watching it.
I wonder if that was on purpose.
You
Little
never
nod. I
know.
don't know if they did a lot of Easter eggs back then. Roger's costume is a foreshadowing and a half. He's wearing all black and all. He's the only one I think because Elizabeth is kind of risque, kind of has that French white wig, blonde, white, platinum wig on. That's kind of, but his is a definite foreshadowing
Homage.
of
Yeah.
Trask. Yeah, he's coming down the pike, man.
And the lady in pink, all in pink, and the big white hair is Rosalie Wallace, who was the main costume designer for the show. She came in after the pilot. But again, this is what Shelley Moore said that we were not. Whereas Beauty and the Beast, they didn't want us near the set or the actors. Dan would say, "Come on and be in the scene. Put on a costume." He would just invite us to be in the thing, at the drop of a
Continuous,
hat. Oh my God,
continuous.
we just blacked out.
Red,
Oh, hold
red
on a
alert,
second.
That was my.
warning.
That's our baby. That's our little baby girl. Sorry, folks. She's 5 months old. She. Hello. Yes. Okay. Daddy will hold you. Daddy will hold you. Here we are. She wants hugs. I'm still in some black void somewhere, and we're
If you wake up in 1795, it's her fault.
It's all Elfie's fault. Aw, yeah, she wants hugs. She wants kisses.
I'm trying to figure this out. Give me a second.
Sure.
Now, if you go back there and I'm Ben Stokes, I'm going to be pissed.
I found out today while since we're kind of in the middle of an episode here, they actually did consider Johnny Carlin for Ben Stokes.
Oh, really?
And as much as I love Jim Fife, I so wish they had.
Oh, definitely. Because he was still pretty vigorous
Yeah, well,
in
by that
91.
point, Carlin had put on a lot of weight, so he had that Thayer thing going on.
That would have been wild.
Yeah, yeah, that would have been really wild if they had gotten him as Ben Stokes. They had not decided on Ben Loomis, and I guess they were kind of bandying about who was going to play who and who was going to do what. But that was
Who?
interesting.
When they do the seance, they've got so Carolyn, Barnabas, Julia, Roger, the sheriff, um, Victoria. Is uh, is Juliana McCarthy in the room?
She is not.
She is not. I didn't. Okay, okay. I was trying to remember that today. I was like, wait a minute. Did I see her in there?
I think similar to yeah,
Sorry about
that's
that.
all right. It happens. Technology is not all it's cracked up to be. I think it was probably along the lines of that they had Mrs. Johnson watching David
Yeah,
during the séance so that he wouldn't come in. That was part of the thing in the original show. So she is not there. And nor is
Maggie.
yeah.
Maggie looked great too. Maggie looked very good in that in her costume. I thought it was pretty
Oh,
good.
and the costume party, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We had a comment on YouTube that if she came back, she would be playing Beth Chavez.
That was Rebecca Staub.
Rebecca Staub. Got it.
Someone asked, and now hold on to that thought. That's conjecture from a fan's point of view, but we got a ways to go before we get there.
Sorry about that.
No, 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 no. It's a good point. We need to come back around to it. Uh, I love how Julia they take Barnabas's attempted kill on Julia, and they just kind of rework it to Carolyn coming in with the knife. You see her go in to Mrs. Johnson's kitchen. She gets the knife. It's very like Friday the 13th. She's going up the stairs. She starts hacking away at the bed, and then all of a sudden Julia springs out of the bathroom, throws back the scarf, and she lets out this anguished cry. And now Julia realizes that's where we get into, where is he, Willie? I'm going to see him, Willie, and I'm going to see him right away.
That's one of my favorite when she bursts in and she really throws Willie under the bus because she says he told me you weren't feeling well. That's all. And Willie was quite upset. Doc, you got to come. I think he's dying. She underplayed it so big, and he says rather a benign description of what was actually happening. And he looks at Willie like, as soon as she leaves, I'm going to beat you to death. But you think, oh my God, what a horrible thing you just did to him.
Yeah. Everything reaches such a fever pitch. And I'm Italian. Anyone who knows me, I said this when we watched the scene. It takes a lot. You have to step on my toes. But when he says, "Shut up, I will hear no more," I said he owes Peter Mac a royalty.
Yeah. He stole that bit of temperament, eh?
Yeah, that because if you really step on my toes, we go there. We totally go there. And the way he's gonna tear her throat out, and then he snarls at
He
Willie,
tossed
and
Willie.
oh my god, yeah, and
Tossed Willie?
Sarah, yeah, that's when Sarah's like, "Stop! You
Yeah, that's
have to
great. That's amazing.
stop."
Yeah. Don't you know that some people want to help you?
Right.
I think that's pretty wild, you know. And he actually gets to connect with her a little bit.
She
You
holds
know,
his face.
I have to say, it is kind of tragic that they didn't have the. She's lonely. She'll talk to anyone, anyone but you. It's a little tragic that that didn't make its way in there, but it was good.
Anyone
It
but
was good.
you. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, his trigger is so like that. He's walking toward the door and that's it. That's his I will hear no more. That's a great scene. And then the banshee comes in.
There she is. And
That's awesome too.
and then there's the tee up. Someone, unless someone goes back, everyone in Collinwood is in danger.
Mm.
Yeah.
And there it is. I mean, though, she comes in right on cue.
And can we take a minute to acknowledge the hilarious moment just after the Emmy Award winning, my God, Barnabas, what was that? That was great. And they're holding each other. Willie and Dr. Hoffman are holding each other.
They're cowering off to the side.
Yeah, and it's a great face-off visually between Barnabas and this. You got a vampire with this ghost of a witch hovering over him, and they're kind of neck and neck like Gandalf and the Balrog. It's a great visually, and I love that he always kind of stays his ground. He doesn't back off. He looks a little bit afraid in the third episode or whatever when she jumps out of the fireplace. He looks a little bit caught off guard, but this time he just looks pissed, and he realizes, I guess, that she is threatening still everybody he loves. So it's a great scene.
Yeah. And
What's he say? Force so malignant or whatever it is you have seen. That's Angelique or whatever he tells that. That's great.
because Julia really doesn't know. And it's like he hasn't really given up much information as to how he got the way he got.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of odd too.
Well, even in the first series, she tailgates him to the mausoleum, and the writers cleverly cut to another scene, and then they come back, and another discrepancy, and then on the day I was discovered, they chained me in my coffin, which is, again, because nobody knew where the story was going to go.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't tell the story the way it really happened, Barnabas.
Happens a
At least
lot.
they faced it. At least they faced it, though. At least they said they're going to confront it. At least they kind of confronted it. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well,
Marvelous.
later on, it's Barnabas that the Collins family history has never been known for its accuracy.
Right. Right. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes. I shouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorite episodes.
It's a goodie. It's a goodie.
Yeah. Yeah. All 13 of them.
I love how you've got, Julia convincing Maggie to do the seance.
Yeah. What's he send her? He says as the channel or something. Maybe she can. What did he say? As the medium from which when he sends.
Oh,
Oh, it's a great line because it reminds me of the old Barnabas. Perhaps she can find something or something along
right.
those lines.
I also like that when Julia's convincing her to do the seance, she's going down the list of family members and she pauses and says, "What about Barnabas Collins?"
Yeah. Yeah. It makes you think they were cooking something up for Maggie.
Yeah.
That she was going to play a pivotal role somewhere, somehow in the future. I wish we could find out.
Yeah. There was something going on there. It's like Maggie she was on to something.
He says something to her that's kind of curt, doesn't he? And she gives it kind of right back to him. No, no, no. When they're doing the second seance, and
Right.
she says, "Now I want you to be aware that." He's like, "We're all fully aware, very well aware of that, Maggie." And she's like, "Oh, the Cloris Leachman."
He almost turns into Jonathan. We're all fully well aware of that, Maggie.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, damn. He kind of like, what did they say in Vicious? I see you took your effing bitch pills today.
It's great. That seance is great. The way the doors blow open, which happens at the costume party in the old house in the original show, but this just the sound effects and the leaves blowing through the hallway and the lights going and the way Vicky grabs the book. You know, she's pressing the family history to her chest. And then those wonderful kind of heavenly voices that Robert Cobert put in to the music. It's kind of like
It's
ah.
you've got the benefit of the production and the more modern tech. You've definitely got that benefit in these episodes. You
Yeah.
know, even before when the writing of the diary opens and Maggie and Sarah's writing in the book. You know, you have stuff like that that they wish they could have done in the old series, or even as fans, we probably in our head saw it. It was not at all happening, but we saw it. Now you are really getting, and like you said, the stuff that they did with the music in this in the revival was brilliant. The same tune, just different in some minor way that changed the whole dynamic of the song. That darkness at Collinwood, he altered that a couple times, and it was brilliantly done.
He
Brilliantly
that
done.
seemed to be one of his favorites because he uses it quite a bit
Oh yeah, and to great effect.
to great effect, and also because again Curtis, like, he's looking at the script going, Dan, you've got music on every page. Do you know how much music that is?
I love that he called him piano teeth.
Piano teeth. That's right.
I love that. The guy did a great job. You know, Dark Shadows had a signature, and the music was a big part of that signature.
Yeah.
Even the newer one. You know.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. So now we're in the past. And I love the fact that David comes in to the room and they're reading they find the note on Phyllis Wick from William Courtney to the Honorable Joshua A. Collins. And Elizabeth's like, my God, so that's where she is. Yep, that's where she is. Sarah told me. And that's a really
Hmm.
great cliffhanger.
And it's good for David too because you kind of feel like a little jab at Roger. See, you stupid bastard! He was telling the truth. What's the matter
Exactly.
with you? Listen to the boy. Yeah, it was
Exactly.
great. That was
And
great because he was creepy in and of himself. And whereas I didn't find David Hennessy, I love David Hennessy's David, and that guy's brilliant too. He didn't get the other credit he should have. But this David is almost like a Red Rom kind of creepy. You know, he's seeing things and he's burning people alive, and this kid's on a whole nother level creepy, you know. So that was a really great sort of shine. He's got the shine, you know.
a child possessed. Yeah, he's the a little bit of the bad seed,
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
but
Exactly.
more so than with Hennessy. When Vicky shows up, and there's the old house shrouded in mist with beautiful red roses um, growing outside, and there come the children, and it's I be Daniel, who be you, David? Don't use be that way. It's I am David.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And
The music is creepy there too.
there's Barnabas, very casual as you pointed out, just in his vest.
Yeah. Now, do you compare the two? Like, yeah, I watched the one, and then I was kind of compelled to go on to Dark Shadows Fans Unite and look at her arrival in the original,
Oh, sure.
and the difference. For one thing, they went a little heavy with Jonathan's rouge. He went from having like no color to being peachy, but the feeling is a little different. You know, it's like a calm morning at Collinwood. You get that sense in this one, and in the old one, you kind of get like, oh, there's still a little creep in the air, you know. But this one is like a calm, warm morning. It's really cool. I love to watch the two of them.
Well, my favorite line from that scene is Vicky saying, "This is some kind of a nightmare," and Barnabas deadpan saying, "We may not be the most popular name in New England, but I don't think anyone has ever referred to us as being nightmarish."
Right, right. I love that he is right out of the gate acknowledging her resemblance to Josette, which I don't think they did in the original series. They didn't
No.
ever any because there was. I mean, obviously they're different actresses and all of that. But even in the original, he kind of tried to morph Vicky into that Josette role. There's no acknowledgement of that, whatever. And I like how they acknowledge it right out of the gate. You remind me so much of, well, never mind, or whatever it is he says, you know.
And then we're introduced to all of these characters that we as fans know: Naomi, the Countess, and Abigail. And all three actresses did a wonderful job. Naomi is very different. She's she's the long-suffering wife, but they didn't they let that wonderful scene we watched where she gives Barnabas and Angelique the old house. She
Yeah,
she was spunky. She
yeah.
was spunky. She had her breaking points, whereas with Gene Simmons, it's quiet woman, and that's the end of it.
I agree with you 100%. I was just going to say, Gene Simmons's Naomi didn't have the back, not to say the backbone, but she was definitely more the submissive,
Yeah.
kind of fragile, genteel lady compared to the drinker.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I agree with you 100 times.
Juliana McCarthy. I mean, it's the yin and the yang. Sweet, lovely Mrs. Johnson and her blueberry flapjacks, and ooh, she is just like a barracuda, man. She is, and a snake. I mean, the looks, those withering looks that she gives Victoria.
The best of that is when she says to when she meets Joshua and they're going through the thing, and she says, yesterday she said something else or something different. She didn't even know what year it was. She's touched in the head. You asked Barnabas.
Barnabas.
The chicken, the chicken look that she gives her, she comes back with her head like that is very, very well placed. Very well placed. Well, that was ingenious because the original wasn't written like that. Mrs. Johnson wasn't too far tone wise from Abigail. They were both kind of stern, whereas this one, they are polar
Yeah.
opposites.
Yeah,
Sweet and maternal, and the other one's ready to sink you into the ground. You
yeah.
know, it's genius. Genius acting.
Love, love, love Barbara Steele as Natalie. I
Brilliant.
forgot how much John. Go ahead. I mean, she.
So many things. The accent is perfect. The look is significant enough that you're not thinking that it's Julia. Her demeanor, the way she carries herself, I loved everything about it. I think the ones that are so significant to me are Barbara Steele, and then I'm jumping ahead here, but Roy Thinnis as Trask. If you didn't know that that was Roy Thinnis playing Roger, that he was playing Reverend Trask, you would not know it. Drastically different. You can't even see the same face. The makeup is
No, yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. But she's bringing some much needed comic relief, and they all get a chance to be funny to a degree. But the Countess, I mean, and Grayson does that when she sweeps in to the old house. Oh no, it is impossible. She's got her feathers with her. She's got her big plume. She's smacking around, and she's just totally annihilating Joshua. Totally like degrade. Every chance she gets, she gives him another zhuzh.
Yeah,
I
Michael.
also like that this is much more loyal. This Countess is much more an admirable human being, I think,
Yeah,
than the other one. And I think that's so brilliantly done. That was such a wise thing to do. The whole dimension shift from the old series to the way that Dupre's are, and this is much, much, much better. I prefer this much more.
It's funny you say that. We'll just make the point that this corrects something that was a really bad decision in the original show, and I think it was primarily, especially with Josette, for Victoria to be taught the horrible lesson of never meet your heroes.
Hmm.
And in doing so, they unraveled everything the original writers wrote about Josette. How, she was this very loving, wonderful creature who had been, the villages hated her because she was a foreigner, but she was this very, very loving woman. And you don't really get that. They didn't write that for Catherine, but I do think it has to be like, Vicky with Elizabeth. I'll let you do the work with Dr. Hoffman on the family history because I want to teach you a lesson. And that's what they were doing. But I like the fact that the family, with the exception of Abigail and the Dupreys, all have Vicky's back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes the curse even more tragic in this series because you did love everybody in this. You loved Naomi, you loved Jeremiah, you loved Josette, you loved everybody, and
Joshua.
one by one. Yeah, Joshua's oh,
See, that's where you miss. He's a standout. He is one of the standouts of the 17. I love Stefan Girash as Joshua. Wonderful.
Brilliant.
yeah. But he
Um,
says, "You are my." Get a little ahead, but he says, "You are my son." It's a heartfelt.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
exactly.
before the broadcast tonight, Michael and I were talking, and you brought something up in passing. I think it's worth mentioning that when we get to this period, there are comic notes where,
Oh yeah.
like Millicent's character, um, Jim Fife is playing it for for laughs a few times. So there it's a necessary break from the drama, I think.
Well, they made a conscious decision to make Jim as Willie comic relief. Even in that episode, I think it's early on before the costume party, where he says to Mrs. Johnson, Barnabas calls me I'm his amanuensis. And Mrs. Johnson goes, what does that mean?
Well, look, he's dying. He's old, and she says, "Are you sure I'm making flapjacks with sausages?" He's this far from staying, And Barnabas is withering away at the old house. So yeah, and the thing is too, like like Abigail and Mrs. Johnson, Millicent is way different. This Millicent is self-absorbed,
Yes.
and Nancy Barrett's Millicent, and you almost character. I prefer Nancy Barrett's uh, kind of a pity pat sort of oh everything's withering, you know. This one's a little just is more of a brat. She's more of a pain in the ass than Nancy Barrett's was. I mean, Nancy had
She's
class.
a hypochondriac.
Yeah, 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 yeah. In the
Oh,
future, no, the famous power is to
La
run.
Grip is very La Grip is very contagious, you know.
She's great, and she's making him carry all of her stuff. And she says he seeks out every bump. He sought out every bump in the highway just to vex me or whatever. It's she's a very different type, but she does very well, you know.
Yes, yeah, they really made her a spoiled, nasty brat, and yet she does make you. She makes us laugh several times herself. She has a couple
Yeah,
of moments in there where she makes us laugh. I think that not long after that, when they decide, well, okay, this is the tutor, and Barnabas pretty much has. This is the thing about Barnabas, and old Barney Boo gets a bad rap. He's basically a good guy. This is
oh yeah,
basically a good guy. Even his brother is a good guy. In the original series, it's his uncle, but they were raised because they're the same age. Who had, as Nancy Kersey would put it, had a zipper problem occasionally.
right, right.
or
Now,
or
is it
or
me?
a button
Oh,
problem, as it were.
Yeah, a button problem.
right. Button fly was okay. So in the 91 in the revival, I feel like so Barnabas got to Martinique in the original, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but he somehow coupled with Angelique, and then as soon as that happened, that's it. And then they came. She did kiss him, but he did do his best to push her away. Whereas Ben Cross, don't they had it off
Yeah,
again when she came.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so they're very different there.
It's one of those. It's one of those things that, again, I don't care whether the man is gay or straight. The man's a man.
Yeah,
Um, and especially back then, let's put everything into the context of its time. I was thinking of this, and go with me on this one, folks. If you've ever read Tina Sinatra's book about her father, and she clearly loved her father, I think they all love their father. Frank Jr., I don't know. Um, but the two, and she says, yeah, my father fooled around. We're not going to try to hide that. He put food on our table. He put clothes on our backs. He put a roof over our head. And in those days, she's talking about the 40s and the 50s. If a man did that, what he did in his privacy was his business. We're not condoning that.
Right.
But now
Yeah.
you're going back to the 1700s,
Yeah.
even further.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's what Hugh Bonneville says about Downton whenever they do a fan event. And, you know, men and women will say, oh, my, what's your favorite part? Because I love it so much. And Hugh's like, you have to realize we romanticized this. Downton is a romanticized version of this. You would not have wanted to have lived back then, especially a woman. You would not have wanted to have lived back then.
No, 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 no. There's somebody that said one time it was about nostalgia, the dangers of nostalgia, and he says, this whole thing of we used to leave our door unlocked and all of this. He said, and maybe the 40s was a great time period unless you were a woman, Chinese, black, Italian, Irish,
Right.
unless you were all of this list of things, then it wasn't so fun a time. She would have been treated Angelique and dismissed. So Barnabas really was a sweetheart because he could have just said, "Get her off the land, put her as far away as you can, da 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 da." And he didn't. He really wanted to be friends in the original series, and this one kind of just wanted him off her back, off of his back. I think he was regretful, but he realized I can't resist this. And it might have been her too. She might have put the hooju on him. Who knows?
Well, that's right. Remember, she is a witch. And
Yeah.
Lizette said, my Angelique is. Let me say this about Angelique, guys. And I know I'm going to get letters and I could care less. And I hope there are no kids. I hope there are no kids watching. She is a friggin' deranged bitch. Sorry. I make no apologies for this. Even Lizette said, I think she's Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction. But she does a lot worse than stewing rabbits. Those were Lizette's words. Where does in love turn into infatuation? Because that's what this is. He never promised her anything, insofar as we know. This was what it was. It was a roll in the hay.
Right.
Maybe
Mm,
she took it to be more than that. I mean, even I said, I'm going 40 from the wrong direction here. But you cannot think that every person you go to bed with when you're single is going to put a ring on your finger the next morning. This is absurd. This is stupid. And I
and
think
you have
she,
to think with this Angelique that it also was just a rivalry thing with Josette because the Countess says later on she wanted everything Josette had. So you have to wonder if it was even about him sometimes as much as it was just making even with Josette. It's kind of there's a lot of different. She's much dark. I mean they're both even Laura Parker, our Angelique was not a victim at some point, but this one's a much different beast, I think,
yeah,
than Miss Parker's Angelique in this whole aspect. I think she's going out for blood. There's no even let's Barnabas, if you don't come with me, I'm going to do this to your sister, or if you don't, there's none of that. It's straight in for the throat
yeah,
with everybody.
yeah,
So I agree with you.
yeah. I'm sorry. There's no sympathy here because insofar as we know, he never promised her something, and I don't want to go down the wicked thing either about we don't know her story.
Right.
Yeah, that's a what if. That's just from another point of view. But yes, this woman is Laura. I mean, Laura did say it. She was a witch. She was a
Mm.
witch. So she's even you can tell. Natalie points out when they're fitting her for the clothes. Oh, you see the resemblance between Josette, and she's kind of giving Vicky the stink eye, although also claiming to be her friend at the same moment. But clearly, she resents Vicky because she does resemble Josette.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
We
evident.
uh, we have a few comments.
Yeah, I do want to get to some comments.
Edie Lewis is back. Nice to see you again. This Joshua is a no nonsense type, but a just, fair, and good man. Yeah, I prefer Nancy's Millicent, but still a good performance.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Then we have
Agreed.
a new person who's joining us, a new audience member, Bob Pierce. Barbara Blackburn's Millicent was too modern compared with Nancy's version, probably the way it was written.
It's
Yeah,
interesting, Bob. Yes, it's there wasn't too much in an attempt at a kind of an 18th century, cadence to her voice in terms of it was really more about the characterization of making her a spoiled brat.
yeah. And Nancy Barrett. We've talked about this. Is a stunning actress.
Oh my
Her
God,
ability
yes.
was
Brilliant,
crazy.
brilliant.
I'm reading Nathan here. Nathan Sanders. Hey, Nathan. My God. It's been a while, Nathan. I love Dark Shadows, age 8, 1975, West Palm Beach. That's great. That's great. It's so good to see you, Nathan. Oh my God. That's like Jekyll and Hyde's a decade ago, decades ago, that we all had lunch at Jekyll and Hyde's. Who else did we miss? Anyone else?
Nope,
No one else? We got them all?
I think we got them all. Oh, we have Deborah Warner joining.
Hello, hello.
Hello to all of our newbies
Yep, we have
and our.
several.
But it's wonderful. You sense for Victoria. You really feel for Victoria. Uh, and Alexandra played this very well too. Is I've got to get back. I have to
Yeah,
get back. Yeah, and Collinwood. I just have to go to Collinwood only to see that Collinwood is still under construction.
yeah.
Even trying to hold her own little seance in the unfinished living room. And then we meet
And
Peter
it's
Bradford.
I was going to say he's the light in the tunnel. He's there for her right away, right out of the gate. He's there for her.
He's a sweetie. He's a sweetie patootie, and he also fills out those knickers very well.
He says, I think this is interesting too because they set up Millicent as dangerous, sort of, and this accusatory thing. He says, if you do this, they will think you mad and send for the bailiff, and that is a fate. And you think they're really setting up this threat of, you better get your shit together because if they hear you wrong, and then Barnabas goes right behind him and says the same thing. Look, my aunt may appear eccentric, but she's dangerous, so
Right.
they're really good about the pacing.
Yeah, yeah. That introductory scene, as you pointed out, and it is hysterical when Joshua's grilling her, and let me see, open your mouth. My what? Your
He's
mouth, girl. And Naomi's like, Joshua, really? These things are important, woman. He's
he gives her a price. Barnabas says, Father, that is ridiculous. Miss Winters is not a slave. Those are all things that you start to like the family a great deal more than, in the original you were given when Barnabas first gets out, a terrible impression of the family. Like they were just horrible people from the beginning. These guys seem a little bit more akin to the Cartwrights compared to what they were in the original series when they were described. Now it's a little bit different when we meet them. But this family you like a lot right out of the gate. They seem to be good
Abigail. You
people.
absolutely well, I mean, again, the comedy, the dress. Yeah, the
Yeah.
dress. What metal stitchery? What is this? Haven't you ever seen a zipper before? Haven't you
Yeah.
ever seen a washing label that's machine wash, cool iron, tumble dry, permanent press? By the way, what year is it? You know of such things as permanent press, and you don't even know the year.
That's a comes back to bite her too. This garment, what did she say? Opens and closes of its own accord or something like
This,
that.
yes, this surpassing strange garment.
That's what it is. That's a great scene. That
And
had to be so awkward too. Can you imagine being in her place and having people rifle through your clothing?
right.
That's so divorced from our thinking.
Yeah, and she wants the dress. It's funny. She gloss it. Well, it's just a book. She doesn't even realize she's holding the Collins family history in her hands.
She just puts it
Oh yeah.
aside.
She wants the dress, and John noticed. He's like, there are towels in there. There were no towels in 1790.
She's got fresh linens in her very modern dresser. You know. Mm-mm-mm.
IKEA had a store in Collinsport. In
Stop telling me. Like, no, 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 just the audience will accept it. You know.
and look for the light switches. Look for the light switches.
When Abigail goes to Trask, and look for the light switches.
Well, wait, hold that. Wait, hold that, because we're glossing over a very pivotal character, Jeremiah Adrian Paul. He makes
Yes.
quite an entrance. God, he looks good. I mean, the man, he's a handsome guy. My irrepressible younger brother, Jeremiah. And
That
he's,
was beautifully cast again. They look alike. That whole like they all look like Naomi. It's weird, but good.
yes. Although interesting that when we talked about the fact that they wanted Frid to play Joshua, they have the same profile, he and Ben, and you would have believed that Frid was
Yes.
Ben's father.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
Miss Parker in her books talks about when she describes Barnabas as the thick eyebrow, the thick curly dark hair, or the thick wavy dark hair, and all of that. And she describes it when you think it, when you listen, and the Roman nose. She always says the Roman nose. You think of that when you think of Ben Cross too. So it's an even Stephen. He would have been a
there's
great Joshua.
there's no way he would have worn that kind of white wig. Just what I know of Jonathan, I don't believe he would have done that. I think he would have had his bangs. I think they would have totally given him his
Lord Byron
bangs.
dying.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the audience would have rated if they hadn't. So, they would have, I think they would have sensed they were under threat there. He would have been a great, just even for those tender scenes between the two of them. That would have the audience would have eaten that up.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Now, John mentioned going to Reverend Trask's. And what
Yes.
is it about Reverend Trask's that we noticed? I mean, I knew this for a while, but
Um, remind me.
there's that staircase
Oh, the
again.
staircase.
Now we're
Oh,
still going down to the basement of the old town, although that's where it looked like it should have looked for
right.
Barnabas, because they put all these candelabras and they made it look very dingy and dark. That's how it should have looked for Barnabas. It looked way too modern for Barnabas.
I'm amazed that they allowed Greystone to be changed as much as it was changed.
Sure.
And all of those candles, that's real flames lit. I don't know how they
Yeah.
got a permit for that. Peter said maybe they didn't even ask. I mean, that could be too. But they painted out Trask's lair. They painted all those walls black, and they had to paint them back again.
It's the bowl. It's unless I don't know unless how else would they have done it? I don't know. That's the bowling alley again. The basement is the bowling alley. At least I know the coffin room is the bowling alley, part of the bowling alley
Yeah.
of Greystone. So, but they did quite a set. And also, look at Trask's. He has that kind of wardrobe divider. Count Petofi has the same one.
Oh, how funny!
It's reminiscent of this divider that's in Count Petofi's lair.
And he had those
Interesting.
stairs that kind of came down like that too into his
Yeah.
into the mill or wherever he was. Oh, that's
Yep.
pretty wild. I never thought about that. This is also, by the way, the introduction to the Brazil wax gone horribly wrong.
Oh my god.
Right?
I don't think people realize what they were watching when they see him pour that hot wax. I don't think people put together that he's burning her organs. It's
Yeah.
it's a hard watch.
Her
It's a hard watch.
her pubic area. Yeah.
He's burning her. It's pouring scalding hot, whatever the hell that is, all over her.
Yeah.
I'll come back around to this. He was supposed to do it to Vicky.
Oh, wow.
Wait, what?
I yeah.
No.
I'll circle. Remind me. I'll circle back around to a synopsis that Matthew Hall had done, and the same thing was going to happen to Vicky on another part of her body, but she was going to be taken down to that dungeon.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
But Abigail's delivery for the tumble dry.
Mystic phrases. Juliana loved this, and she did it at the festivals when people would ask her, she'd get that scowl on her face and she'd say, tumble dry, machine wash, permanent press.
What does he say? Runic symbols, or does she say that? Runic symbols,
He
or
says it. He says it.
yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
But you know what he called
And whoever,
himself? He called himself, we have Gene Simmons as Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, and we have Gene Simmons as Reverend Trask.
oh, got it. Okay, all right. All right, all right. I like.
The
Now,
other Gene Simmons.
the other Gene Simmons, not the one, not our Gene Simmons. When we bring, so the this conversation we've had before about Trask, that um, the original was trying to be a good man, misled
Yes.
though he was. He really thought he was on a mission. I don't get that impression from this guy. This guy's a Gregory Trask all the way. He's a real see you next Tuesday to the nth degree. Like, you don't. There's absolutely nothing redeeming about this guy, and you see it more. They let you see it later on when he's drinking, talking to Ben Loomis.
Yeah.
The prophet is always da 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 da.
Scorned in his own time.
Like you see that, but you see that this guy really is a tool. He's not at all like the old one who actually came home to prayer and came home to do different things and was really, doing his own thing. This guy is a complete, you know,
Yeah. He's an asshole.
yeah, uh-huh, and a half.
Yeah. He really is. He really and scary. I mean, John's right. If you didn't know it was Roy Thinnis, you would not know that it was Roy Thinnis.
Oh no, mm-mm. This is
I,
total Witchfinder General.
and again,
Exactly.
it's exactly, and it's that thing that Laura said about these are theatrical actors.
Yeah.
Juliana, Roy. I mean, they all, and Barbara Steele. I don't know how much theater she did. I'm sure she did some, but she did all of those very theatrical movies, all of
Yeah.
those very dark shadowsy type movies. So she has that in her as well.
Yeah. And she's lucky because she's got that great up here. All of that is made beautifully for what she's doing. The role because she has an exotic look like you would expect Countess Nathalie to have, and she can play it off with those eyes.
Yeah.
And we get a little bit with the tarot cards. Like at first, you're not quite sure. And in the synopses I read, they were going to go down that road of having Natalie not be an ally.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, I'm so glad they didn't.
Yeah. She actually gets on the horn and says, "Yeah, I think you do need to call the Reverend Trask." So they were going to go down that road again, and I'm glad they didn't use that at all.
Wow.
There's a lot of stuff in this synopsis. I'll try to get to it near the end, but these were ideas that Matthew came up with. Some that he pulled from the original show, like, that his dad came up with, and then others that were his own ideas. And Matthew's a wonderful writer because there's a very pivotal episode that he does write. Getting back to Jeremiah, it's funny how you think they're going to pit Peter Bradford and Jeremiah against each other for Vicky. They obviously both want Vicky's attention.
Mhm.
So we get a little bit of that.
If we can take a second here,
Yes.
Andrew O'Connor writes, Lara Parker was so much better. Now, I'm going to pull up another comment that somebody else just wrote in response. Bob Pierce, no one can compare to Laura Andrew. It would have been neat if she'd been on the 91 version as Lizette, Angelique's mom, that had control over her. That would be an interesting way to go about. And then UB Varnum says Lizette Anthony was the best Angelique ever.
I loved her.
Um, it's all a matter of taste. In real life, we were very, very close with Laura Parker. We spent a lot of time with her. So our hearts with her. But you should know, Peter can talk about this, that they were on the same stage at one of the festivals.
Oh, several times.
Yeah, and they both were very complimentary of each other and their
Oh,
performances.
sure.
Oh, yes. No, Laura. I mean, Laura did say I was, for a while, what's the word? Proprietorial over Angelique because I created the role. I played her for 5 years. But, you realize that's not going anywhere. Lamar was smart enough to know that I'm always going to be Angelique.
Mhm.
The sad thing is that, for like Lizette, thank God we're doing stuff like this because there was a period of time where nobody was paying any attention to the NBC series at all. Lizette's last festival was 1996. And they had even though they asked her to be a guest, but they weren't really doing anything. The powers that be, that Q&A session was so static. The MC who knew me ran over and said, "Please get up and ask her a question." I was like, okay, I don't even know what I asked, but it was very uncomfortable. And I think after that, she started to take a break because it was like, no one really remembers the show. She was Angelique was always meant to be a witch. Laura aced herself into an ongoing role unwittingly, the way Jonathan unwittingly did it by saying, I'm not going to play Bela Lugosi. I'm not going to do that. Laura wanted to be Josette. She wanted to be the heroine. So she infused all of this stuff, all of this vulnerability underneath the zinger, those eyes and the zingers, so that the audience did feel bad for her, and she had weeks and weeks to do it, whereas Lisette had a couple of nights.
Right.
Mm.
And they were writing it one way. There really was no way to feel sorry for Lisette's Angelique at all.
Oh no, nor do you see her in future episodes helping them to fight the Leviathan or helping Quentin fight Count Patoff. This Angelique was not of that ilk, of that temperament. You can't see that, and that was one of the things that I loved about the original Angelique was that yeah, she was hot and she did a lot of wrong. She was heated with Barnabas, but she was always kind of there, well, to protect him, but also like she tells him at one point, I know David. I would, you forget that I know David too. I don't want to see this would not have come out of that, although they are mother and son in the future. But this kind of attachment to the family on the whole, I don't see Lizette Anthony's for the writing, not her, for the writing.
For the writing.
Yeah. So, kind of different
Keep that.
animals.
Keep that thought, Michael, because it's important to what was supposed to possibly happen had it gone on. Yeah, and it's I love Jeremiah. I just getting back to that for a minute. I love Jeremiah. He was wonderful. You could see the love that he and Barnabas had for each other. Peter Bradford was almost an adopted brother. It
Yeah.
seemed they had this really strong kinship with each other. And he says to Vicky, Barnabas can be a very, very loyal friend. He's a good man to have on your side. So it would have been interesting if Jeremiah could have maybe flirted a little bit more with Vicky, especially when you have the Josette lookalike thing going on there, which we're about
Mhm.
to get to. That scene again when Angelique breaks into Ben's room. He's not waiting for her.
Mhm.
He's trying to doze off and read a book. And you have to look. You didn't realize the first time around. Now you see. The dress is already unbuttoned. I'm tired of waiting for an invitation.
Yeah, she's got the corset on, doesn't she?
She's got the
Yeah.
corset on, and she wants some. She's ready to. Come on, Mister.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's way different than the innocent kiss.
Barnabas says something about when Josette went to France. God forgive me, I thought I would never see her again.
Yeah.
So I wonder what
Mhm.
the writers were thinking there in terms of that. Was the courtship not solidified at that point? What was there a war going on in France that he thought Josette may never make it back to Martinique? What exactly was going through Barnabas's head when he said that, when he thought that?
Yeah. The Worcester. I think it was kind of the writer's attempt to maybe get play him off as being more as being redeemable, even though he's about to sleep with her again.
Right.
You
Right.
feel like okay, well at least the first time he was lost in the whole notion of never seeing her again. But I feel like in one of the audio dramas, The Crimson Pearl, the Dupreys are in France. They had to go. They left Martinique to go back to France for something, and I wonder if they were considering what you're talking about now when they wrote that story, that period when she was away from him, and Catherine Lee Scott plays her mother, plays Josette's mother in that
Okay.
drama. So I have to wonder if they're doing that. It is true. Where did she go? Why did she leave? What was happening? You know, revolution.
Right. Why did he think he would never see her again? Were they not betrothed yet? I wonder what, and if the writers
Hmm.
would even remember at this point what the story was there. It still gives me chills every time I see it when Vicky starts keeping the diary I, Victoria Winters, start this journal in the hopes that whatever happens to me, there'll be a record of these strange, bizarre events. And we hear the carriage, and she runs over to the window and realizes it's Josette. And that great reveal, there she's on top of the staircase. Angelique's framed behind her. She walks up this, and that great reveal and they did such a great job with the makeup of making her and the hair just different enough.
Yeah.
She's paler than Joanna. The eyes, they did a little bit of different eye makeup to make her eyes look a little bit different. But that moment in which she goes, she's me. She is me. And you've got Angelique giving a kind of a sneer in the back. I think that's a great moment.
I do too. And I think you're absolutely right. Just enough of a difference. Like the hair, Josette's hair is much fuller and curlier, and Joanna's is plain. She's kind of a plain, matronly look, I think, and then having Angelique behind her, trouble coming, storms a
Trou-
brewing.
Trouble is coming. That
Mm-mm-mm.
whole welcome to Collinwood is wonderful. Plus the fact that he's already upset that he went to bed with her again.
Yeah,
Now and that she's being all Dolly Dimples with Josette. And Josette again is very self-sufficient. I can carry my own bag. I don't
yeah,
want you to do that.
This is my
yeah.
childhood friend, right?
She truly loves Angelique.
And what does he say? No, I won't hear of it.
Yeah,
Angelique, get the bags. You
Yeah.
you get the real strong impression here that he cannot shake her, no matter how he like as though he's being nasty just to shake her, but she will not go away. When they go into the room, he's like, "The hell, get out of here!" Kind of.
Right.
She tells him too. You don't have to be so harsh with her.
yeah, yeah. There was
Well,
no reason for you to speak to her like that.
what was going on in that mind of his when she said, "Well, you know, you might think differently if you knew what was going on in my chamber."
and
You
that and
know,
that does come up. Oh, Kay Renee, yes, you're right. Peter Bradford from the 1991 series is very much like Desmond Collins. I agree with you. I agree with you. There are a lot of shades of Desmond. Yep, totally go along with
well,
that. What else? I know there's a couple of other things there.
Um,
Trask's wig was horrible. I hate to break it to you, Andrew, but that wig was $5,000. That is where a lot of the money went, was to hair and prosthetics and custom made fangs.
and
that's crazy.
that figure comes from the book.
Yeah, and he promised that is, I believe, in both books, both in Shadows in the '90s and the Dark Shadows Resurrected book. You can find those in there. A lot of great information in both books. When Dan Curtis met with Rosalie Wallace to take over from who had been working on the pilot to do the series itself, he said, "Can you handle a couple of flashbacks to the past and a party?" And she said, "Sure. You know, just a couple of flashbacks to that with only a few people in them, he promised me." We went
If it
into
was
the
spider to the fly.
past. We went into the past. We never came out of the past. And she said there were no clothes, believe it or not. She flew to New York with a friend to the costume houses that supplied the original show, Eves and Brooks in Long Island City. She said, "I was a crazed individual going through acts saying, I'll take this, I'll take this, I'll take this, I'll take this. I think I want this. I might put it back because, I'm on a very limited budget here." And she's going through trying to get it. It would have been so cool if one of the dresses she had lifted would have been something from the original show. Didn't turn out that way. But she gets back and she presents all the costumes. And Dan goes, "You didn't forget the children, did you?" And she goes, "What children?" So all of those costumes she had to make from scratch. All of the costumes for Sarah and for Daniel were made from scratch. Josette's wedding dress is a nod to Josette's wedding dress, and that was also made from scratch and auctioned off a couple of years ago. So those were all made from scratch. But
Peter, about the costumery, make the point that the actual original series, the costumes were actually further along in time than 1700s.
Yeah, because
That
they
these are
were.
more accurate.
I think it's funny. Even with Josette, it seems to me that, and they did this with Grayson as well, and with Joan in the original. The older women seem to have more period accurate costumes, whereas the younger women they went Empire style, which was very big in the '60s. But that's from the 1810 period, which is when the storyline was originally supposed to take place, somewhere in the early to mid 1800s. So even Josette in this particular in this show, they seem to go with more Empire style dresses for her. Maybe because they saw the pictures of Catherine and thought, well, that's how
Uh-huh.
Josette's supposed to look.
Yeah, because the guys have the ponytail if they don't have the wig,
Yeah, they have the
uh,
little tail on the end.
and the plus fours or whatever they are
Yeah,
with the
Right.
slippers,
yeah,
which
yeah.
they
The
had riding
tights.
boots. And, yeah, you only see the riding boots on when he goes to meet them in their den of iniquity, and then Jeremiah's when he comes back from the dead, he's got the big riding boots on.
That's right.
But everything else is the knee high or the knee high tights and all of that kind of thing. So it's really cool.
We're
I
gonna
didn't
have
realize that he forgot the kids. Oh God.
we're gonna have to pick and choose here
I
what
know.
parts of the plot we talk about
I
because
know. I know where we're getting. I know where
we
we're getting. We're gonna try. We're gonna try to get it all in. We're gonna squeeze it all in here somehow, some way, folks.
Yeah,
so
because there's a lot of
Angelique bewitches Josette. Josette ends up sleeping with Jeremiah. They get married.
Well, the dream that dream is very sexy. Where they're all kind of
Yes, where he's
flowy. They've got her gown pinned back and all the mist flowing up from it, and all of a sudden they're in bed together. And again, very sexy. I mean, these women on the show, I noticed it. Carolyn, Josette, they love men's nipples, man. They go straight. I mean, hey, I get if I was on top of Adrian Paul, I would go for his nipples too. I mean, yeah, there, I said it.
you
They
know
do.
when Barnabas here catches them after they do have the affair. This one's a lot harsher because the sex was a lot harsher and quick. He it's a fight, whereas in the old one he looks it's very sad. He says to her, "Well," kind of gives her the look like, "Well," and he says, "You would say this to me now. You would do this to me." You're much more saddened for Barnabas, the original. In this one, you're just irritated. Like, you find it all irritating.
Well, he real. I mean, he really. There, you've got Natalie, and she's Josette has said, "I want to stop a tragedy," and she's like, "What are you talking about? What tragedy?" And
Yeah,
they walk in and they see the room empty, and so, what happened? And they're trying. He throws the pitcher of wine at Jeremiah's portraits. And again, so great with his hands. His hair starts getting messy, and he's like, I'll find them, and he
yeah.
starts clenching his fists. It's really, he plays it to the hilt.
He calls this my brother and his whore.
My brother and his whore, and you see Josette just kind of like she falls down.
Yeah, it's nasty. It's much nastier than the than the challenge. Accuse what is it? Accusez-moi or whatever it is they say.
Which
J'accuse. That's what it is.
which is an edited scene that Jonathan got that scene edited. It's a fascinating story because he made a faux pas. Just in brief, he said I screwed it up and I went higher than a kite and I knew what a pivotal scene it was and I went to them and said, please let me edit this. Let me go into it, and they said no, Jonathan, it's too expensive. P.S. They wanted him to meet with some bigwigs from ABC, and he said, okay, I'll do it if you'll let me edit the episode. So they traded off, and he said it was so fascinating to watch because they had to take this piece of film from that and a piece of dialogue from here, and they said we managed to get it. And I went and watched it a few months ago, and you see where the cut is. They take a reaction shot from Jeremiah, from Anthony George, to cover what happened. And I'm like, and you even hear a little buzz. There's a little buzzing sound like,
interesting.
okay, that's where the edit came in. Because Jonathan went up on his lines and he said, it's too good of a scene not to, don't. Don't let it go on the air that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's good in the modern too. I mean, I love and I really like this Jeremiah. You really do like his the character, and he really seems lost, whereas is Josetta's just caught up in a spell, and this is my new man or whatever. From him, you kind of get this confusion, and it kind of it's really well played. The three of them play it beautifully.
And Joshua knows, right? He said this isn't a duel, it's an execution because he's no match for his brother.
Right.
Yeah, you don't hear that much in the old about the old Barnabas, like about his abilities. And I said there's a fierceness to this character that makes I think they tried to add a little weight to him in some places more in this like the execution and all of that. And I think that they kind of put that into this, infused it into.
I mean I kind of have the same attitude myself of, I'm a nice guy, but woe betide you if I think you have crossed me.
Yeah,
Because
Tell them there's a giveaway when Ben Loomis goes to hand the
well,
ball.
now that's right. Now, isn't this interesting, guys? It's he's not going to die. He wants to die. He wants Jeremiah to kill him. I think in his own way, it's I have nothing to live for. I've lost the love of my life. I can't
oh,
change this, and so do not load my gun. Do not load my
wow,
gun. So I think that's his mentality is I have no reason to live anymore.
I never
Uh,
thought of that. I
You
never
know,
thought of that. I just
there's
thought he didn't have
Angelique on the gargoyle, the rented gargoyle on top of you know, hyperventilating, as Lizette said. I did a lot of hyperventilating as Angelique. And that sweet scene with Sarah when she runs down to try to stop him. And
Yeah, that's really cute.
the music, there's this sweet music that underscores it and you takes her by the face and says, "No, don't make this harder than it already is for me."
Yeah, yeah. It's very sweet. Would you put my sister back to bed, Miss Winters? And he says, "My brother will not die at my hands," and that's not a fact. That is a fact. You know,
Little does
that's
he
a great.
know.
Oh God, and he gets blamed for it, and that's he shows the mother the ball, doesn't he? My
yeah.
mother, my
What
gun wasn't loaded.
what did we see, John? What did I see?
When he opens his hand to show the ball, the ring is an adjustable ring.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an adjustable ring. It's got the and I said, go back and pause it. And I was like, I'll be a son of a bitch. It's an adjustable ring.
That big thick band. Like who would have thought
Yeah,
you could make a band like that adjustable? That's wild. That's
yeah.
wild.
So we picked up on
Uh,
that.
mother.
Yeah, I didn't mean for this. I really didn't mean for this to happen. And it's sweet with
Mm.
Josette, which she doesn't want to let go of the body.
Oh yeah, yeah. Very painful.
It's that you must let us take him, and all of a sudden we hear that carriage in the distance, and there he is. You know
Reverend Trask.
what's who says it? They're like, what's happening here? And it's witchcraft. That's what it is. And there she is.
Oh yeah. She's the one.
You
There's a
got
great scene, a shot in the funeral that I love, where the family is all over here, and Barnabas is at the foot of the grave with his cane, looking at. I love that shot of Barnabas. He looks so cool, all by himself with the cane in his hand.
yeah
And then he blocks her. We cannot let this happen, and he blocks her with the cane and all that kind of stuff. I love that. That's a really good scene.
yeah very good scene. Love that. According to the synopsis that I just told you guys about, and this was just a preamble to this episode and truncating all of this stuff. Jeremiah was supposed to have survived the shot, and and Barnabas says to him, "I didn't mean it. There was no ball in the gun," and that he accepts his apology, and so he doesn't die instantaneously. It was going to be a harkening back to the original show where he's bedridden
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Josette has a premonition and jumps out of bed to go to him. And they say he just passed away, Josette. So that's how that was going to play out.
Oh, wow.
And it was
Wow.
Angelique. It was Angelique because Barnabas said if he dies, Barnabas says if Jeremiah dies, I'm out of here. I'm leaving and starting a new life for myself. And it says this is Angelique hearing this is what signs Jeremiah's death warrant.
Oh, got
I'll
it.
be damned.
Yeah.
Got you. I'll be damned.
So
Interesting.
yeah. So this was something that they thought about using, but ultimately did not use for that moment. They were going to have all of this stuff with Josette being with Naomi being beckoned to the grave and the hand coming up. We do see that.
Hmm.
We do see
Hmm.
the hand coming up, which I loved because we get that in the
Hmm.
but they cut the moment with her, and his ghost is supposed to threaten Barnabas in the woods and saying because Angelique overhears a conversation where he says, "You must wait for a respectable mourning period, and after that, I will be happy to have you in my family as my son-in-law, the way you were supposed to be." That's when she reeks, thinking, "Oh my God, this wedding is going to still take place."
Got it.
Unbelievable.
So the ghost of Jeremiah goes to Barnabas in the woods and says, "If you marry Josette, I will open up the gates of hell on the Collins family."
Too late. Kidding.
Damn.
But this is all being
Wow.
dictated by Angelique.
Right, right, right. Okay.
Again, this
All
is
right.
stuff they did. This is stuff they didn't use.
So Angelique is talking through the ghost of Jeremiah.
Yeah, she's pulling the string. She's dictating what
Got it.
Jeremiah is saying. Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
doesn't become evil after he dies.
yeah.
It's got it.
That's frightening when he goes to the room to kidnap her and he's got the contact lenses in and his face has started to decay.
Boiled
That's
fish eye.
yeah, yeah. He is really that's really frightening. And Widow's Hill guys, Curtis went to Brian Remy and said, "You have to make Widow's Hill here." And he said, "Where? Where am I going to make Widow's Hill?" Well, just find a place. You'll find a place. He's like, "But there was nothing that looked like a cliff." So he said, "I rented a rock. I just happened to find a rock formation in the shape of a peak, which we mounted to the driveway of Greystone Mansion." So when you see Josette and Jeremiah and you say they are on the driveway, that's at night too. That's one of the few times it really is at night. We picked up on a few real at night
Yeah.
shots. That's one of them. And when they're standing on the cliff, that is just a mounted rock on the edge of the driveway of Greystone Mansion.
That's crazy. When he busts in the room, that great wah music, when they run up the stairs because they hear her scream, that reminds me very much of a Hammer movie. Even the music of them running up the stairs, that reminds me very much of Cushing running up the stairs. And I thought that was great. And I think the hunt, trying to find him, is that it's the two fathers and Barnabas and Ben,
Yeah.
and they're in the woods and they find him and he has that conversation. Don't do this. I think that's a great scene as well. Angelique.
Angelique, and that's, all right. Now Barnabas is like, okay, something's
Up go
going
the
on.
antenna.
Up go the antennas. Yeah, something's going on here. So I love that he raids her room. And then he and the Countess join forces.
Yeah.
And as he's about to pull the dolls apart, and she's like, "You can't. If you do that, Josette will die. Only the witch can break the spell."
Right.
Yeah. A little hint to the old occultist from the original series, that she had a little bit more knowledge than the rest of the group.
So that's that when he barges in on her. And it's funny because, he barges in on her the way she thinks she's going to get some, you know. Meanwhile, when he gets her by the hair you
Yeah.
know,
Break
br-
the spell. Yeah. Well, first of all, I like when he just raids Angelique's room, and then he comes out to the Countess with a phallus in his hand and says, "Have you ever seen one of these?" I was like,
plus,
"Dog."
plus, I like the fact that I don't understand. She's like, I don't understand. Her mother was such a woman, but I don't understand her. And he says, you don't know her the way I do. And she's like, oh, mon Dieu.
Right,
And she feels sorry for him because she realizes what happened. And again, I think it's a thing of, okay, he's a man.
right, right. And then you don't know if she played with him now with magic. She probably gave him a little benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
You know,
But the
that's a great.
cursing,
Those are great.
yeah, the cursing scene, and Lizette said it took 3 days, I think 3 days. She said,
Wow.
Ben, I was scratched because, the way she had her hand, she said, I was trying not to use any of what I had on my nails, but I kept getting his like neck. And then we had to have a real knife for some of the shots so that it could shine. And then we have the prop knife, and I had to keep falling. And they said, you can only fall one way, Lizette. It's got to be splat. You just have to fall splat on this, retractable prop knife. It was a little bit of a letdown for me because I'm so used to the original scene
Which is brilliant.
and Laura's monologue, and people can go, oh well, I mean, yes, she was shot, but she's a witch, so she's going to cling on to that last breath until she gets that entire curse out. Here they broke it up.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It's much better. I also preferred in the original, and I guess there was no way to do it, the scene where he actually does. I mean, that's a big moment when he says, "You're going to be the first victim of your own curse." That nobody even acknowledges that kind of like anybody who loves you will die. Well, you're the first on the list, Mama. Apparently, you love him. There's that whole thing gets missed. It's great.
Poetic justice reigns supreme. That's, yeah.
And Jonathan and Laura Parker, that scene when he comes, because you get that 3 day or that 2 day desperation to try and save him. One, because she loves him. Two, because she's just opened up a plague on the town and she doesn't even know she can stop him. So she's trying to kill him. She's trying to save him. Then she's trying to kill him before he raises. And then Ben locks her in and says, then he'll settle you. And he locks the door and you hear them quote, like, that's a great, in the old show when his hand jumps up and grabs her and hits her around the neck. Those are all great things that they missed in this one.
Yeah. Because again, we missed out on the whole marriage. We missed out on the
Yeah,
whole marriage. Again, in this synopsis, Angelique was going to tell him, I'm pregnant and it's yours.
Oh wow.
Jesus. Was she? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Was she really though?
I don't believe so. I think this was going to be a ploy.
Got it.
And then
Okay.
Barnabas was going to actually marry her and go off to Boston with her. This is all in this synopsis. I was like, oh my God, like this is wild, man. Some of the stuff they had come up with that didn't
Yeah.
get used. But yeah, she was apparently, this was bandied about that she was going to say, I'm pregnant and it's obviously yours.
Mm, 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 mm,
So they
mm.
were going to weave that in there. And this was when they said, too, get this is when it was supposed to be 10 episodes. Not even
Oh,
13.
okay.
This was supposed to be 10 episodes.
That's
Um,
reasonable.
you know, oh, the comedy when they come back from the ordeal with Jeremiah and they walk in
Oh, I
and
know what you're gonna say.
right? For once in your life, sister, keep your damn miserable opinions to yourself. I need a drink. And by the way, you look like you could use one too.
That is a great scene. That is awesome. Yeah, we've all been waiting for that, somebody to say it.
That's it. It's like when Rose in Titanic when she finally says to her mother, "Oh mother, shut up."
Right.
Go to the top of Shut Fuck Mountain and golly. And then when Ben says, "We're going back out, boys," it reminds you of that. And the guys are like,
A lot, really? We're going to get another shot. Yeah, we're going to get
Yeah,
another shot to look for the creature. The curse though is it's kind of interesting the way they do it on Angelique's part, making it the guise of Josette.
I love that. It's so much more
That's
demonic.
yeah,
And I do love in the original series that the fact that it's the she's Gisette and she bites him. He really does look exsanguinated. He looks completely drained of blood.
totally.
He's weak. Like you see his hands going like that as he's got her behind, they're just losing strength. When she sits up and turns into that bat from hell,
Yeah,
that seems like a curse. Like, it seems like how the first vampire would have been singled out from the other vampires because he was bitten directly by a bat from hell and just flies off and disappears. It's so cool.
Because we only see him one more time. I think it's when he comes into Josette's room. They use the bat
Yeah,
one more time for it was a pretty good bat too. I've got to say, even in high
yeah.
def, that was a
it looked
pretty
like a
good
bat.
bat. It
Yeah,
looked like a bat.
A vampire bat, yeah, very
Yeah,
much.
it was not bat by Bill Baird.
In the tweeting
Aw.
that the bat always did.
Yeah. So I did like that. It was interesting to do it that way. And then again, and you think, what else can this family, because they're going through bodies left, right, and sideways. It's, Jeremiah's gone. Now Barnabas has been, Naomi's starting to crack. This is where you see Joshua starting to really kind of soften.
Yeah. It has a Hamlet feel, like the end of Hamlet when they all die off at one time. It has that kind of what the hell's going on in this household.
And they all
Um,
know, this is the thing, is they all know it's Angelique. It's come out into the open. They know
yeah,
that it's Angelique, except Abigail and Andre saying, Madame, if it is, Miss Winters, what could possibly be her motive? And she, does Satan need a motive?
right. She represents so many televangelists. I love it.
she's
She
she
really
is
does.
she's got it in for Vicky. She just has it in for Vicky.
Mm-mm-mm. The
His
the it looks hot as balls in some of those scenes too, doesn't it? Like you must be. It feels like it's summer in Collinwood. They're all sweating, like, but they've got the fryer crackling in the background, but sweat pouring off of Ben Cross.
Yep, yep, all the glycerin,
Mhm.
and when they lock him up, and Joshua, says, this is I built this for the revolution, but I never thought it would be used for this. And he wishes him peace, and he said, "I know. I'll see you one day in a better world.
Yeah,
We'll meet
that is so
again."
sad.
Right, and Peter, and then even Ben. We only get hints of that original relationship with Ben. Ben is truly distraught that
Yeah,
that he's dead or seemingly dead. The resurrection, yet where he's pounding on the lid of the coffin.
yeah, I love that. Boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom.
you know
That's so great.
the contacts, and then we've talked about this before. The winds are howling, and you can hear all the animals. It's like now he can hear all the animals of the forest.
The branch scraping onto the side of the mausoleum. He sees that. I don't like the way he runs with his cape.
Super
That's a bit
Barnabas.
cheesy. Yeah, that was a bit cheesy, but I love the rest of that scene is really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of snarling,
Yeah,
and we get Ruby Tate. Although I do like the stuff on the docks better with the original show, where he's really fighting against it.
yeah, yeah.
Always tries to leave before he can do damage, and these women always persist.
True to that. True to that. I love when he whacks the guy with his cane too. When he's busted, he hits the guy, and the guy goes. Well, I think that was great too.
Because
Just
when
sideswipes him with.
they see the marks, and they're like it was a man. They're like, how could a man have done that?
right.
Yeah, yeah. hmm And then there's the whole daylight
Yes.
sunrise, and he doesn't know what's going on, and he's burning, and he runs to the old house, and Drops my poor cane.
They did that in a really it. I saw it as a teenager. I've watched bits. It's a movie called Grave of the Vampire.
Let me
It's and
see.
a famous guy plays the vampire, and he finds himself in a predicament like that where he's got on the run from the sunlight and like goes into a what do you call it? Almost like a laundry room of an apartment building, and covers himself up because he can't get back to his coffin. That's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, I can see where if you're talking like a laundry room, like the in the old apartment buildings where they're very dark
Yeah,
and
yeah,
alone and creepy.
yeah.
Mm-mm-mm. He sleeps on
It's
a bundle of like sacks, doesn't he?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And there's that staircase again. There's
Now, what night? What happens? Now I can't remember. When he wakes up the second night, he
that's when Josette
that's
comes
when he,
into it.
okay, and he gets Carolyn too. Not Carolyn. Um,
Millicent.
Millicent. He gets her at the house.
Yeah,
Doesn't that's actually right before that is when Bradford is utterly. He goes up and he says, He sees Ben Loomis and says, Mr. Barnabas, he's hurt pretty bad.
yeah.
And then Peter and the Countess talk about what they're seeing in front of them, all this happening, and they really drive a lot of that. The old show, you had time to catch up and hurt, but this one you really are broken hearted because it all happens at once. You don't get a moment to take process. It's everybody's dying, everybody's dying. So it's much heavier hitting to me than in that aspect. You feel much sorrier for, especially Sarah.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes. And and she warns Peter. She says this has to be the work of a vampire.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Mm-mm-mm.
"Oh, come on." She's like, I wouldn't dismiss this. Don't, you can't dismiss these, especially after what's been happening. Don't be so quick to dismiss the idea, Peter.
Yeah.
The book comes into play, and
Hmm.
it's one of those things, and it's that's where he says to the family, "We're going to the new house. We're leaving this cursed place behind. And as far as the world is concerned, Barnabas left for England, never to return." And Peter and the Countess exchange glances like, "Oh shit."
Hmm.
He
It's in the book.
it's in the book. So it's again, I love all of that. How again they're all trying to help Victoria, and they're trying to figure this out, and they're trying to stop this as they put it, this terrible chain of events before any more of these prophecies can come true.
Yeah. Yeah. The backing of Vicky is what I really like. And I love during the trial because this is an ardent difference between Joan Bennett's Naomi and Gene Simmons, when she snaps under the pressure and says, "Why are you doing this to us?" And that didn't happen. In the original, Joan went to testify for her, uh, against Joshua's orders, but she did it anyway. So it's a much more tense, I think, sad feeling because they are all behind her.
We do get
It's
the flipping back and forth too, which we didn't have in the original show. They are going back intermittently to the present day, so we can see what's going on with, and of course, Ellen Wheeler is Phyllis Wick when she runs away, gets caught out in the woods. She's
no
terrified of
comedy.
Sheriff Patterson. You, sir, may roll away in your fiendish metal contraption. Madam,
The
things are
devilish
quite
machine.
different in Connecticut.
That's true. She's all put off by the car, which I mean, I guess I would be too. But
Sure.
I like when that the journal is updating itself in the future too. That's
Yes.
really cool.
I like that too.
The when he says the terrible Reverend Trask came today and took. And by the way, just to take back a little bit and mention, June 26th is expressly mentioned in Sarah's journal,
I was
which
going
is
to
my
say
birthday. A
June
walk on
20th,
the beach.
the walk on the beach. That's
Uh,
right. That's right.
keep that keep that goddamn journal in.
And I wondered
So,
too if that wasn't a mistake, even though it's really cool. It's your birthday. I'm
oh
like,
yeah,
oh, why wasn't it June 27th? What a great Easter egg that would
right,
have
yeah,
been. Although we find
yeah.
out Vicky,
Oh,
Vicky
no,
was Vicky was born in 1966, so that's a nice Easter
the
egg.
we also get another nod with the judge, Judge Isaiah Braithwaite, which is
Braithwaite,
the Ezra Braithwaite, the family that made Quentin's pentagram and a pagoda.
Abe Vigoda. That's right. That's right.
Barnabas. uh,
He was wonderful.
so,
He was wonderful.
mhm,
And as the story unfolds, and it's a little bit different, where he says in the original, I made a promise to Josette that I would come to her, and this is more a little bit more happenstance, because it doesn't
yeah,
quite happen that way. And they want to get her out. They're determined to get her on the next ship back to Paris.
yeah,
And she goes back looking for the music box, which she finds, and that scene where she says, I want to be with you. I don't care. I don't care whatever it is. I don't care. And he's got his, hands covering his face. And then, we see the contacts and the fangs, which the original Josette never saw. She got bit, but she didn't see that side of him. She
hmm,
just thought she was getting a very, over exaggerated hickey.
Right.
you're
Um,
right.
it's a little
Especially passionate.
off-putting. It's a little off-putting that Josette sees him that way. She's not frightened and offers up her neck.
Yeah,
I think she's
nothing like a little
thinking,
necrophilia.
right.
So I thought that was an interesting choice for her to see him as a vampire, considering that's what's going to kind of drive her over the edge, literally.
I wonder if that's because this was during the Beauty and the Beast era. When
Oh,
that show was still running strong and they were trying to cash in on that she loves him no matter what thing. But I agree with you, it was kind of because what upsets me about it is then later on when Angelique shows her that prophecy or that vision, well, why are you put off now? You weren't put off 5 minutes ago. What did you think this was going to be? It was no big deal last night. You knew what this was.
right, right, exactly. Oh, my baby's back. Elfie
Uh,
wants to be in on the conversation.
she says, I know something of a witch.
uh, Going into those again, we were talking about the intermittent coming back into the present day, keeping an eye on Phyllis Wick, and then again trying to figure out because they know, when they're like diphtheria. Nobody gets diphtheria
Diphtheria
anymore.
anymore.
Right.
This is everything is of the utmost, importance in terms of saving her life. Then they do the second seance, and we're clearly, uh, we see right away that something has happened to Julia. And I thought that was
Yeah.
an interesting twist, the possession of having Angelique bring herself full throttle into and again, that kind of weird poetic justice that here's the woman who's been trying to cure Julia. Now she's being possessed by the woman who cursed him.
Right.
Right.
The juxtaposition. Yeah, indeed. Absolutely. She does a great job in that. You get a vision of
She
you get a
does.
glimpse of her from the horror films. Her old those old films that she did in the 60s and the 50s. You get that sort of and she's creepy possessed because she's a very lanky woman. She's got those great big eyes, she's really frightening.
And Joe, now we got to mention Joe here because Joe finally sees Carolyn and Barnabas. He knows it's Barnabas. Cases her, sees them, and all of a sudden goes to Patterson, and Patterson is like, "You still have no concrete proof."
Right.
Even though from day one he's been my main suspect, it's been proven that it's not him. You got to give me more than this. And Joe's like, the hell with you. I'm going to take care of this on my own.
Right.
And at the time, none of us kind of realized what was going to happen. But there he's got the steak, and all of a sudden, we hear that kind of, ugh.
That was a genuine shock for me in the 90s. That I was genuinely struck by the fact that they killed Joe Haskell off like that because it didn't happen, like that in the show, the old show at all. So I was real, and you liked him
Yes.
so much. He was
Yeah.
such a likable character
Yeah.
that you'd hate it, and you thought, well, is this the end of the actor? Will we not see him again? Or they really did leave you. The freaking network left us in a really bad way.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did.
It
So,
was a bloody death
oh, it was a very bloody. She's got blood all over her hands.
everywhere. Yeah.
And because Willie comes in, he sees that the coffin room door is open, and now he's freaking out, and she's going 2A, 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 and she comes at him with the knife, and only if I remember that's right, she hits her head on the wall, so it brings her back into reality.
Yeah. And you feel like you hear Barnabas inside the coffin when Joe is killed, and just you hear him saying inside the coffin, "Willie, you are the worst."
No
How are you
lock for the
gonna let
door.
into this goddamn coffin room? Oh, terrible! Like this Willie is really not a good watchdog at all.
No lock for the door. Um,
Uh,
Hang on to that, E.D. Lewis. Hang on to about Joe in the present day. Without Angela. Oh, listen. Wait, is that, go back, bring that up a second? We're going to run a few minutes over here, guys, tonight. There's no way because there's a. Hubie, no, we agree with you. There is someone on the boards. Come here, little girl. Ooh, super kitty. There is someone on the boards, God love them, who absolutely hates Angelique with a passion. And I'm like, but without Angelique, you have no story.
Exactly.
yeah, you gotta have a villain. I mean,
Yeah. Without Angelique, there is no Dark Shadows. So we agree with you on that. No, you got to have Angelique. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so
and
once
I will say, Angelique is the hero of the audio dramas. Oh, you.
of the
Like you.
audio dramas.
Yeah. So she's pivotal. She's crazy important.
Did I cut you off?
No.
Oh, no. Okay. Um, so now we're back into this whole idea of Julia saying, I don't know what came over me. I don't even speak French. What is this? And I love Barnabas. Barnabas says, well, you said that the seance, you had a kind of a bad reaction to it. I'm thinking like, well, she didn't eat some bad tuna.
Right.
Oh, was that me?
And then Willie says that, are you saying that Angelique is inside of Julia? And that's what precipitates her going to see Maggie.
For the exorcism.
Only to get Maggie.
Only for her to transfer from Julia's body into Maggie's body. How's that for a little roundy, the one who's really been trying to do the most to try to get Vicky back and try to figure this all out on that end of things.
And not fast forwarding to the end, but this is one of the tee-ups of we never get any of this resolved with Maggie and Angelique.
No, this is something that is unresolved. I like with what they did with Josette's death. They made it because I always love the story of how Josette died, as Barnabas tells it to Carolyn and Vicky. She had a quarrel with her lover. She tried to send him away, but he would not be put off. And it's this great build and build and build and build. It's almost like the ride of the Headless Horseman.
Mm.
Then they, when they get to it, it's just Angelique luring her to Widow's Hill and showing her what she will become if she goes along with him. And I like the hybrid of that. The only thing they cheaped out on was using that stock footage of David's nightmare of the vampires coming after him, the ghost, the demon Josette attacking Barnabas. It's a little homage to House of Dark Shadows. You've got that mist-filled staircase and all the candles, so it almost feels like the finale of House of Dark Shadows. Again, she's been sick in bed with vampire bites, but her hair balloons up.
The perm.
Perm. That, she's got that beautiful dress Rosalie made for her, little nod to Catherine. And then the chase through the woods. I love the chase through the woods. And he sees the, he sees the cleft and no, no, no. And you see her kind of really make a decision that this is it. This is my only way out. And it's heartbreaking. The scene between Natalie and Vicky in the jail cell when she realizes and says, so you're going back to France, and she says, yes, we're taking Josette home too late. I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking of it, because then she cradles her face and says, you look so much like her. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, I cried a lot. I cried a lot watching this time around. There were a lot of moments.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hearing.
Definitely.
And that other little bit, when just before Angelique shows up again, when she materializes in the courtroom, and the Countess with the Reverend Trask, well, why would she do this? She was in love with Barnabas Collins. Well, I don't understand why a woman would do that.
Oh, that's a great
You
line.
know very little about jealous women.
Or women.
For that matter, women at all. And, everyone
Right.
starts, it's really great.
That is true. I forgot about that. She, I was getting teary-eyed when we were talking about when they put Barnabas in the secret room. And I know the damn what's happening, you know what I mean? Like, he's coming back, but you get really caught up in the whole thing with this series, the music, the tragedy of it all, and you really do get taken up with all that stuff. It's really well done. It's really well done.
And everything, like the things that happen so quickly, where the kids want to know where Mama is, and that's when they see him killing
Abigail.
Abigail.
Abigail. Yeah.
They see him killing Abigail, but I do love that, Abigail, don't make me do that. Why do you never listen?
That's a very intense moment. And it's actually sort of redeeming for Abigail that she says, you'll do no such thing. You'll go upstairs and go right to bed. And then I'll go look or whatever. She puts the kids to bed and then she sneaks off with her kerchief. He bites her in the staircase. But I remember I was grounded um, when that happened. I was grounded for a grade or something. And my father would record it for me so that when I would go there on the weekend, I could sneak and watch it. So I remember getting down there and saying, and being so before I could even put the tape in. So in the old show, this happened. In the old show, this happened. And I said, what happens? Does he kill Abigail? And my dad's girlfriend said, oh, he gets her. He get, oh yeah, he gets her. So, I was very keyed up to see, because the old one was kind of like, she just sort of had, I guess, a heart attack.
Yeah.
She just puts on this really ugly face, and then that's how you see her. But this was much better. This harkens back to the Brides of Dracula when he bit his own mother, which they wrote in on purpose. They said it's kind of it's a grotesque. What's that word? When family and incestual. It's sort of
Incestual.
yeah, it's ancestral, so it's that much more visceral that he bites somebody that he's blood related to. And I thought they harkened back to that with them, even though we all hate Abigail. Um, that bite was, and there again, that darkness at Collinwood, bum, bum, bum. That was so, and you hear the scream, and then Angelique again pronouncing the curse.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
And the kids.
Well, and the first time with the curse, when and he's really, kill me, just kill me and have it over with. Oh, how can I do that?
No,
How could I do that? I love you, and I've given you eternity to change your mind. I mean, she really is. You talk about a see you next Tuesday. Yeah, she really, she just pushes it and pushes it. when he gets down on his hands and knees and begs God, he prays. He
I was just gonna say
prays.
that.
It
Please
what
God.
oh, it's a great moment.
Yeah,
It's a
you
great
didn't see
moment.
that in the old show, and it's very heart-wrenching to see that whole thing.
Yeah.
Please, God, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great scene. He's killed Millicent, right? He's just killed Millicent
Yes.
when he
Yes.
does that, and he's kind of
Yes.
going back to him fighting Carolyn, the same kind of anguish, that heart, that Al Pacino at the end of Godfather 3 shout
Yeah.
that he does, which I
Uh,
think is that's one of the best. That's one of the in Godfather 3. That's one of the best things you see when the girl is shot and the scene falls silent, and then you just hear Al Pacino screaming or yelling out. It reminds me very much of that. That kind of very heartfelt pain.
Sure. Pure anguish. Pure anguish. And then Angelique summoning him to the summoning Naomi to the old house.
yes.
Oh yeah, what a bitch. That's terrible. Mother, help me, mother.
Yeah. Yeah. Like really? Really? Poor Naomi. And then when she sees him and she passes out in his arms, and now I said to John, even though it gets a little bit away from the curse of the original series, but she dies on the inside.
Yep.
When you go
I think so
insane,
too.
yeah, she dies on the inside. And with Joshua, when she's talking to him and he discovers Abigail's body,
So tender.
and
Yeah,
he's realizes, oh my God, she's lost her mind.
Wear the gold brocade. You look so beautiful in it. Yeah.
It's
yeah,
so sweet.
Let's go look at the new house. Yeah.
yeah.
And
That's really harsh, hard to watch.
that confrontation where he's boarding up, he's closing down the old house, and he walks out of the shadows, and he's like, shoot me if you must, I wish it would work. But
Yeah,
the reaction,
right.
that putting out his arms to him.
As opposed to, and God love him, the original Louis Evans portrayal was brilliant. I'm not at all taking from the actor. I'm simply talking about the character. Louis Edmonds, who said you would have killed your if we mattered to you, you would have killed yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't get that impression, and then he does shoot him
Yeah.
to no avail.
To no avail.
Whereas
The,
this guy struggled with it.
the tenderness of that moment, the fact that he can't follow through on it, I cried. And then where I sobbed was when Sarah is dying.
When Sarah dies.
Absolutely, I can hear them, and he says, "I will not let you go." It's it's it is a hard one, and and a
I'll
little
always
bit,
love you, brother.
You never and you promise you'll never forget me. Oh my God! And if you watch the Dark Shadows Resurrected tape, guys, which we're going to try to transfer and upload, they show the rehearsal of that scene between Ben and Veronica Lauren. And it's so sweet to watch him working with her. He's got her and he goes, well, the angels are everywhere. So you look over my shoulder, the angels, and he's working with her as a colleague. And it's so
yeah.
sweet to see him working with this little girl. Um, it just made me love Ben Cross all that much more. That's a little scene on that behind the scenes tape. It's very sweet to watch them rehearsing that scene together. But when it's completed, oh my God, you really are. It's Niagara Falls.
Mm.
Well, I mean, tear it up already. He actually does a thing and makes an acting choice that I think is brilliant. When she's dying, I guess he doesn't want her to see him crying or breaking down, so he goes like he's behind her and he goes,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
does it like, just like his heart is breaking, but he doesn't want her to see it, so he just kind of contains himself,
yeah,
and he's talking to her. That's a brilliant acting choice,
yeah.
because who can't relate to that lump in the throat because you're holding back tears,
Right.
those moments. So it's really, really well played.
And everything with Trask, we get the whole, bricking up of the wall. I love the fact that we get the letter. I think that's, they got that in there. Again, here they're getting in all these pivotal moments from the original show, but we just have to get there in a much faster way.
That's kind of comical when he drags Trask in there and he's making that noise. To the Honorable Isaiah Braithwaite. That's all really funny, really great.
Yeah, and those final moments when the final bricks are being put in. Yeah, goodbye,
Reverend.
Reverend.
He tells him he gives him another curse. Barnabas is having all kind of curses thrown at him. You'll burn in hell for this, Barnabas Collins. Da 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 da. So, and there again, when they put him in, when Joshua Cross does this great thing, he does the same thing to Josette with a hand. It's time, Father. And they start to turn that music up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
You see Ben Loomis crying. A little Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, it's very sweet. There was so much sweetness in this, and
Can I just say one thing?
you can say whatever you
Sure.
want.
The pilot episode, the jewels. How do the jewels get with Barnabas? We never get that resolved either.
I have to think Joshua put him there in case.
Yeah, that's
That's what I
that's
think.
I
If he wakes
believe
up in some future,
because we
Hmm.
never quite know, was Barnabas put into an eternal slumber. That there's a million theories about what happened in those 200 years. I do believe that Joshua visited the room many times.
This Joshua. Oh yeah,
Yeah, and that the jewels then at some point, maybe as he knew it was coming his time to expire,
yeah.
right?
that he
Who am I going to leave these to? Daniel? Right.
Well, I have to think that because somebody composed that poem that led Willie to the information that led Willie to look for the jewels. Why was Joshua probably thinking maybe in time they'll find a way out of this for him? As opposed to, which would have totally changed some of the outlook, like the Edith Collins, "You're the family secret. You were never supposed to be let out." I think there might have been a little bit of a different trajectory had we got to know the future, there a little bit. But yeah, I think this Joshua, particularly having lost everybody else and knowing that in reality, now imagine this: you have a son, you have lost everybody, but Daniel, you have a son you actually know is alive
yeah,
in that box.
yeah,
I don't think I could never visit. I'd have to say, please forgive me. I'm sorry that I
Right.
couldn't bring myself to do this. I have to think that this Joshua was secretly going. And maybe even Ben Loomis,
oh yes, oh sure, oh sure.
or Brad. Did Peter Bradford? No, no, Peter didn't know.
He didn't know.
No, he didn't know.
No, he didn't know. And as we're getting now into the last moments of the show itself, Angelique destroys the note. She erases Braithwaite's memory of the visit from Peter Bradford, so she sends her down the river.
Right.
That's a done deal. No, no note. And
She kills Phyllis Wick.
well, yeah, Maggie. She has Maggie go into the room and start to dismantle all of the machines. And Phyllis does essentially die.
Right.
I
It's,
mean,
it's only the
Oh yeah.
the injection in her heart that brings her back.
there's Julia with her cup of tea. All of a sudden, like, holy shit.
Who's done this?
Where's the well? She sees the look in Maggie's eyes, so she knows. But it's like, okay, I can't deal with Angelique right now. I have
Yeah,
got to get the adrenaline in this girl's heart.
yeah. Now, are we? Who was it Was it Sarah that saved Victoria? That brings her back into the future? It has to be Sarah, right?
I think it's it's. I think she was meant to come back when she was meant to come back.
Okay, so it was like a universal thing, like a
Yeah,
providence.
Daniel's been saved, which is the reason she goes back.
right. Because,
Okay.
guys, if you watch the original show, Daniel was a cousin who Joshua adopts. And it's in those final moments before Barnabas is chained up where he says he even wants to hug him and Jonathan pulls away. he does really start to melt at that point, just before he chains him up. And he says, I'm going to adopt Daniel and make him my son, and hopefully I'll be a better father to him than I was to you and Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It it's interesting too to conceive of Barnabas, the two Barnabases. We've talked about him being PTSD when he comes out of the coffin, the original, and of course there are elements of that in both. But because of the harshness of the reality of the Collins family in those days, you see where this Barnabas should have softened up a lot quicker than Jonathan Frid, who did have that really piss poor relationship with and a very domineering father and a mother who you can see where he was harsher, to Willie. It's interesting. It's just interesting stuff.
it's so yeah, I think it's just that transference of entities that everything
That's it.
happens. Again, this is something Mark B. Perry has brought up about Vicky with this sequel series and her daughter coming to Collinwood and Vicky having lived, because he said, now remember, when Vicky is hanged, she's not from that time. So she goes back to her own time as she falls, through the platform or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So if she was allegedly pushed off Widow's Hill by Jeb Hawkes, she might have fallen. But where did she wind up?
Got it.
Because
Uh,
she was not really from the 1700s.
Got it.
So
uh,
that's
too, with the sequel series, a lot of people, we fixate so much on Angelique and Barnabas that we forget that the entire family was cursed by a stronger force than even Angelique. Judah Zachary had cursed the entire family from Amadeus Collins.
right.
So Quentin, Barnabas, Jeremiah, they all fall under sort of an umbrella curse.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of room in that family for a sequel series, plenty of material.
And when she wakes up, and again, the lights go out and the lights come on, and there she is, and the poor baby is so traumatized. And, I mean, even Julia is happy to see her. Everyone's happy to see her. But that's the thing, guys, if you haven't seen it, this Vicky, and they said, Joanna Going says, my Vicky is very observant.
Hmm.
She takes everything in. She observes. She's very observant. Oh my God. She and Josette say, we are, oh, and that's so important. I don't care if we get into the 3-hour mark here. That moment when she and Josette meet for the first time, and my heart skipped a beat as a little kid, and it still does now, that Josette's walking down the hall and she hears someone singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, it's, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there. It's all of that. And she comes into the room, and I've never heard that before. Is that new? Well, it's about a little girl, Dorothy, who's lost and wants to find her way home over the rainbow. Oh, that's so sweet. I love that moment. Because that's really what it is. The trip to 1790 or 1795 is The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
Oh, definitely, definitely, absolutely.
So
It's a
that
beautiful place.
I had to add that because when I heard it last night, I was like, oh my God, I forgot how much I love this. Just being a wee bit of a Judy Garland fan. I
Well, they say they're one, don't they, or something? Like I feel like I've known you all my life, or
And she
they have an
says to
exchange.
her, yeah, I think by, she wants Josette to go back to France, and she says, I have to stay here and be with you. And by saving you,
Right.
Vicky, I'm saving myself. And that's
That's it. That's it.
when Vicky starts to put the pieces together and she goes, it's Daniel. Daniel's the key. Now
Yeah.
Angelique realizes what's happened and she wants to destroy the Collins family for all time.
Yeah.
Around about the time she figures out that Barnabas is the vampire.
She's putting all the puns like, wait a minute, all of these attacks, this is happening in my
Now,
time.
yep.
I
And
knew
there's
somebody very much like him in my time. Yeah, we were falling in. Oh, shitty. Yeah.
so now we're in the final frame, and he sees her, she sees him, and she grasps Elizabeth, and they cut to Ben with that,
He's super intense. He's
And
super
that's when
intense.
NBC fucked us all over.
Big time.
Royally.
Royally fucked us over. Again, if there's a kid
Without
watching,
lubricant.
I apologize.
Hmm.
Edie, you asked about what was going to happen. There were no
Let me
scripts.
bring up Edie's comment.
There, there were no scripts. Allegedly, a couple of new scripts have been written. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. This was brought up in an interview with Lizette Anthony. Um, she said she had heard that. She also said that they ordered the 13 hours to be whittled down into a 1 hour show for advertising to see how it would play. I don't know what the thinking behind that was, but they said we'd like you to take the 13 hours and somehow make a 1 hour movie out of it for us to test with advertisers. This was put on the table. Again, this was when the show was given the can. Now, what I have come to learn, and it's, let me get the right page here so I can figure this out. There were a lot of ideas that were tossed around. Um, Matthew Hall felt that although Vicky had kind of sort of forgotten about Barnabas, what she had learned about Barnabas, that would not play with a modern day audience. The audience wouldn't accept it. He was in favor of an idea where she would come to terms with it and actually help in trying to get him cured.
Well,
That
okay.
she would become an adversary. The problem was that in curing him, the audience might disappear because without no reluctant vampire and no sympathy, how do you have any real interest in the show? You have to have him still becoming a vampire at some point. So there were a lot of ideas, but nobody could come to grips with one that they really wanted. They were going to delve more into Roger's character and Maggie's relationship and the mystery of Laura Collins. Lizette was asked to be Laura Collins, but they weren't quite sure that she would have been Angelique. It might have been Laura being possessed by Angelique. Or
Mhm.
the Phoenix storyline, totally devoid of Angelique. She would have been playing Laura Collins. This is something that was bandied about, her playing Laura without actually being Angelique.
Even though Maggie says Laura is evil.
She could be a phoenix with supernatural powers, as she was, and this would have been the catfight of all time, the battle of the two witches, which would have also been a nod to the Gene Tierney movie Laura.
Oh, interesting.
Which two witches? So, Laura and
Laura
Angelique?
and Angelique, which is kind of what happened in 1897.
I was gonna say, and that was a great fight.
Um, they planned to heavily use Quentin, and his story would have dominated half the airtime. Adrian Paul did confirm that he was asked to come back as Quentin. They weren't entirely sure how they were going to do it. Quentin and Angelique would be involved in some way. There would also be a direct link between Barnabas and Quentin, but they weren't quite sure how that was going to go along. There was a werewolf storyline. They thought that Turn of the Screw would have been a little bit more problematic because they didn't think they could do it with just David, and they did not
Right.
expect to bring in another little girl
Oh, interesting.
as Amy Jennings, although I think Veronica Lauren would have been the choice. She would have been my choice for
Obvious.
Absolutely.
Amy. There was also some talk, brace yourself guys, because I know it's going to send you over at Widow's Hill, of not doing the 1897 storyline at all. So see if you can just introducing Quentin as a modern day character. Michael T. Weiss was definitely going to be brought back. They weren't quite sure how the swap of souls was going to go along. Possibly as Jeff Clark, or Peter Bradford possessing the body of a 20th century man. If they had gone along with 1897, Weiss would have played a character similar to Chris Jennings, but it would have been Joe Haskell's twin brother who came to Collinsport to investigate Haskell's death. Because remember,
Ah,
Joe Haskell is dead.
And then he could have been Quentin. Because they were Quentin's grandchildren in the original, right?
So he would have been the modern day werewolf. So Quentin would have been
Wow.
tied to the Haskells. And there were going to be cameos. Laura Parker, Johnny Carlin, Jerry Lacey all expressed interest. I know Catherine did too, in being a part of the new show. They did want to hire John Carlin to play Ben Stokes.
No
And
Nicholas Blair.
no mention of Nicholas Blair, no.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
And no
I
mention
guess no
of,
Cassandra. No
yeah,
need.
no Cassandra, unless that had come in after 1897. Um, there was something else that had come up. I'm just going through the notes here to see. Talked about.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was going to be a very severe moment with Victoria where he's interrogating her in the drawing room and Abigail brings him a fresh hen's egg, which he puts in water. If it is rotten, it will float. The egg sinks. Uh, so there's several people in the room, including Angelique. When Trask puts it back in the water, it floats. Trask proclaims that this is the presence of evil. Angelique gently snaps her fingers behind her back. The egg breaks open and a baby snake swims out. Trask triumphantly points out Victoria sees the witch. Sarah, who has been trying to sleep, hears the commotion downstairs and witnesses Trask taking Victoria away.
Mm.
Abigail, Natalie, and Angelique are all present for the boiling cauldron of oil in his basement. He forces her arm into the vat. Angelique concentrates, and when her arm is taken out, it is without blemish. Ultimately, it's Ben
Uh,
Loomis who rescues her from his dungeon and hides her in the wine cellar of the old house. Barnabas is convinced that Victoria is in fact the witch. Ben goes to church to pray, and a beautiful young woman named Bethia Mapes approaches him. Perhaps she can help.
oh wow. And that would have been Maggie. Or that would have been a great, like you said, that would have been great.
It would have been her, yeah. So there were some really interesting things that Matthew had come up with to add to the 1790 storyline that were not used. But he did write that pivotal episode of the curse and Jeremiah's hand, which I think he was doing a lot of nods to his dad. Um,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Sam wrote those episodes. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. You hear all of this stuff, you watch, we got caught up in it, and you go, NBC, you really fucked up big time.
Screwed the pooch. Uh.
And
So many marketing.
what I'll say is, when people say about the show coming back and they go, oh, they tried that and it didn't work. Bullshit.
Oh no.
Bullshit, Ron. Not true. It did
No.
work. It just wasn't around long enough. And this is where I go along with Curtis when he said, you can only do it again if you do the same stories and you rework them. That's what they did here. Imagine if another team came in, brought the show back, set it in the 60s, and said, now we're going to use some of what they did, but we're going to make our own twists and turns. That is where I feel that Dark Shadows could come back as a remake. If you follow
Mm.
these rules, because they made changes, and again, like them backing Vicky up in 1790, that was a great change.
Right.
Josette truly being a lovely person was a great all of these things. And there's so much more. It's so malleable. Dark Shadows is so malleable. There's so much you can do with it. So aside from Mark B. Perry's sequel series, I do think the show could be brought back as a redo.
Oh my
Agreed.
God, yeah. Agreed. With the success of all these other shows, and the way that people love this period stuff, absolutely. Absolutely.
Bridgerton. Look at Bridgerton.
Yeah, 100%.
We were saying earlier, Jonathan Bailey would make a great Barnabas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So much material.
So much material. In the final analysis, I mean, I if we were giving it a 1 out of 10, I'd give it a 9.5. There was very little about it that disappointed me. It's just that we didn't get enough time, and that wasn't their
I
fault.
agree. 100%. That's my only qualm. And
We're
I
get,
felt that way back then.
and we're robbed at the end. That's 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 the travesty in this whole thing.
Yeah. John turned to me and he was like, I can't believe that's it.
A 2 hour movie at the end, something to tie it all up. But
Yeah.
yep.
Now, someone pointed out on a board, on the revival board, David, I don't know if you're watching, David Lombardi, that Lizette made a statement where she said, in the end, I'm glad it was only 12 episodes. I'm really glad that it didn't get picked up. And
Who said this?
David Lombardi, he's a fan on one of the on the revival board. We were going back, and I said, it just doesn't sound like Lizette because she, more than any of them, came to the festivals, would judge costume contests, um, encourage the fans, keep writing letters. There is a chance for it to come back, maybe in syndication, in a syndicated series. So I don't know if over the years she's had a change of heart. She did do one of the audio dramas.
I
She
was going to
did.
say she's in the audio drama.
So I don't understand that statement because she seemed for at least 2 solid years that she really wanted it to somehow be brought back. So, but maybe she had a change of heart. I don't know.
Maybe she had a bad day.
Exactly.
We love it. It's all part of the Dark Shadows legacy. I know some people love it, some people hate it, some people are in the middle about it. I would have loved more. And it just proved the point to me that there could be another Dark Shadows out there that will not take anything away from that original series that we all know and love so much.
No. God, no, you couldn't. You couldn't.
The Johnny Depp movie we'll get into, that's another show.
And the
And another universe, right?
and the Warner pilot.
And the Warner Brothers pilot. Yes, we will be covering those as well.
Okay.
So I want to thank you guys all. This is the longest one we ever did. We appreciate you. Again, like and subscribe on YouTube. And we will see you soon. Once again, happy birthday, Catherine Lee Scott. Good night, guys.
Adieu.